If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter and YouTube. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. Today is Tuesday, January 6th, 2026 in the United States, and it is Wednesday, January 7th, 2026 in Japan, which is where Trish is. And we are coming to you, I was about to say internationally, but we are always international, Trish. We are always giving the international news, but we're especially international. This is the Pan-Pacific edition of our show, as Trish is reporting live from Japan, where she has been attending various and essential wrestling events, including Wrestle Kingdom 20, which was this past Sunday, the 4th, in the afternoon, evening, or early morning, depending on what your situation was. The show was great, Trish, at least watching it from home. Was it good watching it live in person in the stadium?
Oh, it was phenomenal. It starts with just the fact that it was so busy. Yeah, this is the biggest show for wrestling really in 20 years, at least in Japan. It's near enough 20 years. 98, looking at Inoki's retirement, and there wasn't a seat to be had outside of behind the foul poles. In fact, they were selling the literally no view behind the foul poles as the show was progressing, which is just insane. Yeah, so. You don't have a view, but you want to be in there? Fine. People were just yeah, okay, we'll be.
I'll be in the room.
Yeah, but I guess it's one of the things. When last year, you couldn't really feel it in that way.
Yeah.
In terms of, you thought it was a decent crowd for Wrestle Kingdom last year, and then obviously it was about $8,000 less for Dynasty. But you're okay, yeah, fine. This is how it is. It still feels like a great crowd. And then you go in that, and it's it's different. It's just completely different. And some of the way they react is exactly the same. You still have to earn a lot of the cheers and that sort of thing. Matches start slow and you build up the crowd response, all that. But just when you do get that noise, it's unbelievable. The amount of noise, just the feeling, the way it reverberates, because you have an air roof on the dome.
Yep.
So it's powered by air, so you get that real reverberation. It just comes back at you, and it feels like it travels around. It's sometimes it feels it's almost like it comes down from the gods. It's really weird. It comes down from the top tier, and it comes down to you, and then you feel it moving around. So there's real motion. So, and with that, they did absolutely everything to make this feel massive. With the outside, they had hundreds and hundreds of banners everywhere of just Tanahashi, everywhere. It just looked like walking into the sumo. It was ritualistic in a way. And then as you got in, the stage setup was fantastic. They do an incredible job with that. And that was you saw that when Evil made his entrance, and they opened the gates, and he come up, and we were that looks fucking awesome. In fact, Evil best entrance 2 years in a row. How has that happened? But it has. Needs to go and tell Dave.
Really cool from home. On the TV, It looked amazing. So I can only imagine what it was like in person.
He needs to tell David Finlay how it's done, because Finlay with a weird gun. It's 2 years. Mate, the Mad Max thing was bad last year. This one's what is this gun? But no, the use of the stage was just fantastic. The way they shot it, we could see the shots in the corner. Yep. You're watching up to see how they're shooting stuff, and then the way they produce everything, and especially when you got to the kind of the main event and the retirement ceremony. And obviously it's it's one of the things where we have like a really recent example of somebody else trying to do similar.
Yeah.
And it's not comparable. It's
No.
not comparable. And in a way we're going to make comparisons.
Yeah.
But the way that they executed everything was perfect. And you couldn't have asked for more. Going in, we looked at the top 3, maybe top 4. And the Junes is probably the down point. But in terms of the top 3, we said, you have to execute these. It's like you've got 46,000 people in this dome, however many around like the world on New Japan World. And then most importantly, the first time they've had a prime time slot in, again, like decades. So it's like you have to execute this. And I felt like they did just a phenomenal job at that. And it's one of those things where you walk out and just, you can feel it, like the energy that people came out with. And the energy, and it carried over into Dash, which is what you want. And that was what was missing last year. Last year, people just kind of came out and you just kind of go. And this year, it was like, everyone's just like feeling it and talking about it. And there's like an energy. It wasn't, I think there's a tendency to think that because this was like Tanahashi's retirement, it was like a final curtain on an era. And that was like the energy of like season finale.
Yeah.
But that's not how it felt. It felt like, there's all these things to kind of move forward with. And especially like with some of the Japanese fans, because the Aaron Wolf thing to them was so big that they weren't looking at it as just like Tanahashi. So, and same with Tsuji. Tsuji was mega over as well. So it was like, it felt like more, it felt like promise rather than just kind of like, all right, we're done now. We've had our New Japan. We've had our run. These are season finale and we'll take a break now. So yeah, just a completely different atmosphere to last year, a different feeling. It feels like they are so much more organized now. I think they've got they're working on about 6 months of creative at the moment, which is crazy.
Crazy, but good.
Yeah, just completely different. Like you can feel the different amount of organization, and that really shone through in what they did on that show for sure.
So I guess we could talk about the top 3 matches since you kind of touched on them, but I thought the Aaron Wolf match was really well done. I was really impressed with the guy. I think I'd heard a lot of complaining about, he doesn't have any charisma or whatever. I thought he did a great job. Like, I thought he came out, his selling was pretty decent. His moves looked good. The match itself was structured very simply, very well, good for him. I thought there was maybe a little bit too much there at the end with the table stuff, but the rest of it I thought was perfect. I don't know. I thought he did a great job and I thought he looked fine. I don't know. I like a little chubby guy, so I had no issues with his physique, which just seemed to be something else people were bitching about. But the crowd, like you said, the crowd seemed to be hugely behind him during that. Like they were all really looking for him to be as successful as he was.
It's hard to like find someone to compare him to.
Yeah.
I don't think we understood. And so, going in, the reaction to Aaron Wolf was something I was really looking forward to listening to. Like, I wanted to see, like, I don't care about how, Western podcasters talk about him or we talk about it. I was like, how do they feel? You'll feel that from the crowd, right? And like when he pulled off his judoka outfit and he was just in his black trunks, like the pop for that was probably one of the loudest of the night, like by far. It was crazy. Like, and before he even came out, like before they were going to pull up the graphics, so as soon as they finished like the junior match, like they start chanting for him and stuff, and you can feel that energy pick up. And it really was. It's like the energy changed in that building when he came out. Like the noise level. It's weird. You think like, oh, you understand the noise level, like you know where they're at, and then all of a sudden it was like it went up like 20 decibels.
Yeah.
It was mental, and I loved so much of what they did here. So, like. The thing about what you're going to remember about Aaron Wolf is that one of the reasons they got prime time is Aaron Wolf.
Yeah.
If you pick up, so there was 2 papers yesterday that you could buy after the event. One of them had Tanahashi on it. Like this is like your national newspaper. The other one was Aaron Wolf. They went with Wolf over Tanahashi. So it's like, he's super important. And, we've been getting people to watch him or asking people to watch him and see his kind of, how he's getting on sort of thing. Because I think people look at the angles, and angles are so much more difficult when you're brand new because you're getting like information real quick. It's like, okay, we're going to do this in 5 minutes. So you can't prepare for it. Whereas this one was rehearsed to death. It was rehearsed to probably he was sick in the face of it. But it didn't feel like that. And it was so important that they did that because this has to succeed. This has to be big. It has to work. So even starting with like when he rips off like his judoka outfit and he's just in the black trunks, and the pop that got, it's like shedding your kind of previous skin to be kind of the New Japan wrestler, and just being in the black trunks, you know, like Young Lion style. It kind of acknowledges the fact that you're not the finished product yet. You're not that guy,
right?
But you're going on this journey, and you want me to take you with you. And like, yeah, huge pop comes down. Evil, obviously, just incredible entrance, atmosphere, just like crazy. And then when you get into that, the structure of that match, I was going absolutely apeshit because I was just like, this is fantastic. This is just so good. Because they used it last year, you know, they had the Wolf was interference in the Tanahashi match with Evil. And they used a lot of the same protections around using like House of Torture, that sort of thing, that they did with Tanahashi last year. And when you've got a guy that's limited, that's the sort of things you can do. So you use as many of the kind of the escape tricks essentially as you possibly can. And what they did was they kept it really simple. Like they weren't asking him to do like too much. I know he did like the splash through the table and stuff, but you know, that's just kind of falling. But like, we're not going to ask him to do too much or big sequences. We're going to keep it really simple. We're going to use his power. We're going to, you know, kind of use the judoka stuff, the throws and that sort of thing. And obviously when you've got all the House of Torture running in, including Sonata and his very fetching yellow boots.
I loved those shoes. I loved them. I thought he looked amazing. I loved his little speckled hair.
Yeah.
Sonata.
Sonata serving. Does Sonata serve?
But not necessarily.
I think he has in the past. I definitely.
He definitely has in the past. Sonata in the leather panties always reminds me of like a Boca Raton housewife who's like the blonde second marriage, like his second wife, and she's like later though she's like 60 now and he's dead, and she's like wandering around with like a cigarette and a cocktail. I don't know. I'm on a digression, but anyway, I could talk about Sonata's outfits and his physique all day because that's where I'm.
We'll talk more about Sonata later anyway.
We can get into that
another story,
time.
Sure.
Exactly.
But no, but you know, they used all them sort of things. They took him up the ramp to do the ramp spot with the chair spot where Evil just hits the chair and it looks like you killed him, right? But actually, he's just swinging a trowel around his neck.
At that point, oh my god, the crowd was like, "What the fuck? He's dead." It was great.
And then the idea is that you give them enough time that you have all these segments of the match, right? And if they rehearse this for like over 20 days, but it's like, if he gets lost, there's always somebody with him. There's always someone who can talk to him. There's always someone that can work with him. And there was two things to me for this. It's like, one, I thought Evil was phenomenal. Just absolutely incredible. And like his face expressions, all the work he was doing, the work with the crowd that he was doing. I just thought he was so, so good. And I think sometimes, again, like he gets a lot of shit. And a lot of it maybe deservedly with House of Torture. But in these big moments, same last year in the Dome with Tanahashi, like he's one of the best heels that I've seen, like in terms of getting the other guy over. Because I think it's the same thing we'll talk about with Takeshita as well. And with Okada, is that there's so much these days of like a heel just wanted to get themselves over.
Yep.
All they care about is getting themselves over. And that means if it comes at the kind of expense of the babyface, then so be it, right? We don't give a shit. Like, as long as it suits me. But your job as a heel is not to get yourself out of it. Your job is to get a babyface over. That's your job, is to get the audience behind the babyface, to make them want to see the babyface beat you, not what make the audience want to pay to see the heel. So it's like he just did everything. And what I thought was great on the other side, where Wolf and probably goes kind of, as you mentioned kind of earlier, will go on kind of under the radar, is I thought his selling was good. You know, even if it's like they've worked on it, I think he did a good job of that.
His selling was good, which I think is one of those things with new wrestlers that they can sometimes, you can really see the seams when it comes to the selling.
Yep. And something that I've criticized other people for in New Japan quite frequently in the past when they've come in is I thought he was trying really hard to emote to the crowd. I thought he was trying to play to the crowd. He was firing up. He was doing all those sort of things. And some of that you do in like judo and like Olympic sports anyway, right? Like you do that whole thing, like bring the crowd, come on, and play to it. But I thought he did a great job of that. And the other thing, I'll add another one as well. I thought his look was great. So the hair, like the weird hair that he had previously, it was like a greasy 40-year-old businessman sort of shit. That went, and it was just like, okay, so it's like Young Lion style, real simple presentation, like all the noise that I think people had about his presentation going in because of how he looks in some of the angles, gone.
Yeah,
that's it. And it was the right result because the pop when he won, like just absolutely insane. I was watching the floor and there was people like jumping up and down. I mean, this happened for a lot for the match after as well with the Tsuji Takeshita one, but it's like they were jumping up and down. You think this is like a new guy, and all the promotion here. Tanahashi Wolf. That's it. Tanahashi Wolf. That's it. So it's so important that they got this right. And look, he's not going to be the finish article yet. They protected him very much at Dash. He had very little in-ring time. And they know it. Like, his conditioning will take work. Once he's now going out on the road, that will really, like, in that regard, it will really help him.
Yes.
To be kind of around every night, training with the boys sort of thing will really help him. And that will help his conditioning and everything like that and his look. But I don't think he needs to be a rip guy. Like,
I don't think he needs to be a rip guy either. I
no.
don't know. But that's the thing that I'm probably different than a lot of people, where I'm like, he doesn't have to be ripped. He doesn't have to be fit. He looked like he could do the moves that he was doing, right?
Yeah,
like,
he's a judoka. It suits him.
Right. At no point was I like, this guy's not capable of that, because he was doing it. And I thought that the one thing I liked about it was, like, yes, I think you could tell it was rehearsed, but you could really only tell it was rehearsed by his confidence level in the moves. Like, he was moving very quickly at points. But I also think one of the things about it is that it didn't look rehearsed in that kind of like NXT way, where they just are stopping in between moves. Like, he didn't have that. He was not flailing around trying to figure out what he was supposed to do next. And I thought I was pretty impressed from that level, because I do feel like a lot of times with new wrestlers, when you're watching them in the ring for the first time, they're kind of like, what's happening? The space between the moves gets them tripped up. And I didn't think he had that at all.
It's funny, actually, because when we discuss Tsuji and Takeshita, we'll discuss the space between the moves specifically. We might as well do that now, actually.
We can move on. I thought, just do that. I don't know how much more I could say about this. I thought it was great. I think obviously they have to protect him. Obviously there's stuff they want to keep an eye on him with, but the crowd seemed to absolutely go ape shit, loved him. And I thought he did a fantastic job. And putting him in House of Torture matches for now, absolutely. Why not? Like, I mean, it's hard, because you got to look at it. You've got two top baby faces that you're trying to feed people to. Yeah.
But for him, he needs the actual protection of the gimmick. So you're going to have to be with a faction that has like the gimmick protection. You're not going to, and then eventually, you can look at doing something that, was pitched for Wrestle Kingdom, and doing maybe something with TMDK and Zach.
Yep.
Have people that can really kind of help him through it. Maybe Finley, those kind of guys. If he stays, but it's like, which I think he will, but we'll see. But it's you probably do stuff like that, but just do the gimmick stuff to start with, especially during this time of the year, because you've got New Beginning, but then you've got like Fantastica Mania, so there's no pressure on him there, and then you get into the anniversaries, the Career Genesis, that's the business end. So given the opportunity to work with those guys, and Evil's a trainer as well, so an opportunity to work with him on a regular basis will really help, because he can get that immediate feedback and that sort of thing. And it's a big credit to him for taking a risk and all that pressure on him, pressure, and he delivered. And the impact that will have had, everyone's seen like the 3.5 million people watched it in the primetime slot here. Like, it's like huge. And the primetime slot was literally like Tanahashi retirement, Aaron Wolf, like big parts of the show. And then like 5 minutes for Saya and Suri, and then 5 minutes for like Yoda Tsuji and Takeshita. So he's like, that shows you how important he is. And it got people in to tune in, which is what they wanted. They're looking for people, in a way, the lapsed fan, the casual fan. It's kind of, in a way, it sounds like a little bit like WrestleMania when you say it.
Yeah.
But the idea is not to, I think the difference for me is like, we're not getting you in to watch, like, I don't know, The Rock come back, or John Cena, or to come and beat all our talent or whatever. Like, we bring them back because we want them to invest in these people going forward rather than looking back. But yeah, he's such a critical part of it. But in terms of what you could ask for him for that night, you can't ask for more. Like, everything delivered. And it was such a shock, and I guess for us, is like, because everyone's been so nervous about it. That, like, it was like punch the air stuff. I think I probably did a couple of times, because I was like, this is so good. Like, the structure is just so good. Everything they did, I was just over the moon watching it, and watching the people on the floor just like bounce, like the energy. This is the thing about this show. It was just energy. That's all I could feel was like, and it's different energy, but it's like all you could feel was energy. There was never a moment in that kind of back end of that show where I felt like, anything was sagging or anything like that. It was just like 1, 2, 3 punch.
Well, let's talk about Tsuji and Takeshita. This was a good match that I enjoyed, but I think probably for me at least suffered slightly in comparison to the other two, because I was sort of expecting it to be a good match. It was a good match. I was expecting Tsuji to win. He won. I thought it was well put together and I liked it a lot, but I think it lost a little for me in comparison to the other two, just because Wolf was such a sort of a surprise in some ways, and you're not going to touch the emotion with the Tanahashi retirement match. But I know you were really looking forward to this. You were super into Tsuji winning. You were obviously a big fan of his live event charisma. Did you enjoy this match, Trish? Did you feel like it was everything you wanted it to be?
So I think I probably rate it a bit higher than you, and not even just because it's Tsuji, but I thought they did some really clever stuff, and they addressed some things that have been driving me fucking insane all year, to be honest. So look, with Takeshita is a phenomenal wrestler.
Yeah.
He is arguably the best wrestler in the world in ring. I think you can make an easy argument for that. You remember last year when we talked about Takeshita at this time, and we said, look, if they all commit onto him, like, and he commits to New Japan, like, he can have everything. Right. He can have everything. At the time, they're already looking at giving him the IWGP at that point. But it's like, the problem is nobody really committed to anything.
No.
So we ended up with this thing where rather than, putting him straight to the top or trying to put him in key spots, or they give him the Never Belt, and then obviously he just kind of was around, and that was half the year. And then all of a sudden it's the G1, and we can't decide if he's a heel, if he's face, whether he wants New Japan, whether New Japan want him. And then we're going to put him in the semi-final with Zack, and then, make him like, he's more... Is he the bad guy against the dickhead world champion? Is the good guy? And then we're going to put him against Evil, a guy from the New Japan dojo. Because unfortunately, at the end of the day, these are the things that Takeshita has to go over. It's not even being from AEW or being like, working mainly abroad that's going to hurt you. It's the fact that you were a DDT guy. You're not a New Japan guy. And it didn't work. And they got an incredible atmosphere out of it. And maybe, I was talking to someone this week who was like, maybe it was what they wanted. But I don't know. I just think it was so mixed up. And the lack of having like a character this year or any sort of clear definition or direction really kind of hurt him.
It was interesting to look at 2025 for Takeshita in New Japan, given that, like you said, at the beginning of the year, we thought he'd be more successful in New Japan than he was going to be in AEW. And it ended up, the opposite ended up being true. At least from...
It's a weird thing though. Has he moved? Here's a question. Has he moved upwards in either promotion? Like, you can give people belts, right? And acknowledgement. He's got a G1 and he's got a IWGP, but is he any stronger?
I think this is going to be hampered by my lack of knowledge of New Japan. So school me if I say things incorrectly. You know that I am. My perspective on him from AEW this year was that he has ended the year in a stronger position than he was when he started it. Do I put him in that top echelon of guys? No, but I think he's further up the card than he was. And I think the crowds are, for the most part, way more invested in him than they were at the start of last year. And I feel like, I don't know if the New Japan stuff has helped him. I think it's mostly been the Okada feud that has really gotten people extremely invested. Was that hurt by the World's End match? A little bit, probably. I just think that, I feel like at the end of last year, we had this strong feeling that, like, New Japan is going to be where he's going to be successful. Like you said, if they go all in on him, he's going to have a great, and they sort of never seemed to do it the right way. He never seemed to take off there and never seemed to get the crowd behind him in the way that I feel like the AEW crowd have gotten more behind him. And so I don't know. I think we could argue card placement and whatever, but I think he's in a better spot than he was.
Do you think so? He's triple contracted. Well, yeah, he was. So we'll see his status for this year. But do you think that sort of scenario works at the very top level? Being like, you look at World's End, right? Yeah. And you had this storyline of who's the best tournament wrestler. You've just had Takeshita win the G1. You had Okada, retain, like, this was, you could have done back C2, and then instead you kind of like, you drop it and you have to do this weird finish to the semi-final matchup because you're protecting the belt, obviously, for Wrestle Kingdom. Do you think that when you're at the very top level, you can actually make these things work, the dual contract thing?
No. I think Takeshita can do, like, I think that it works best with something like, and I don't even know if Mystico has a dual contract, but I think it works best if you have a situation where you essentially have a special attraction wrestler who shows up, he's not part of the storyline, or she's not part of the storyline, but they're a big deal in their home country, they're a big deal in their home promotion, they come in, they get a couple of essentially exhibition matches, but they're not effectively part of the universe per se, right? I don't think you can be a number one top guy, top person in multiple promotions. I think you have to pick and choose. You have to be like, this is my home promotion. This is what I'm doing. That's my perspective on it. And prove me wrong. Like, let's see somebody do it in both promotions. But I think this is kind of a shit or get off the pot type thing. And I think, you know, did that hurt Takeshita in New Japan? Or was it, like you said, more of the fact that he's not a New Japan wrestler from the dojo, that he's somebody from DDT? Like, or was it that?
I just think it was a combination of things with New Japan. So it was the fact that he comes from DDT. That is a part of it. It is a part of it here. You can't deny it. Like, everyone I speak to, it's a part of it here. And then it's also the case of, you're not there, you know, which isn't on him again. And when he was there, like, I think he struggled with energy and kind of, he looked shattered at the end of that G1. He just looked absolutely exhausted. It's a lot on your body. It's a lot, you know, just flying back and forth. It's a lot physically, emotionally, mentally. And I don't think he ever went out. But yeah, their inability to pick him a role was like massive. Because do I think he would have got over if they'd gone, oh, you're going to be a super babyface? No, like I don't. I think if you're in that role and you're only coming in kind of like a special attraction anyway, but they want you to be like the top of the food chain, then you need to be heel. You need to be heel. You need to be someone that they're chasing and like, hey, you're not here, which Tsuji did lean into. So he needs to be. And it's really funny, actually, because he did a little bit with the Hiroki Goto defense where he kind of started leaning into that. And it was a wishy-washy promo afterwards. But in general, it was like, okay, I know the role I'm going to play. And this is the first time really in this whole run where he was like, I know what role I'm playing. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm responsible for. And I'm just going to do it. And then so there was none of that. There was none of this kind of messy kind of positioning or kind of feeling to the crowd. And especially a crowd that, you know, there's a lot of casuals that probably came in just for Aaron Wolf or Tanahashi.
Right.
So you have to sell them. So, you know, they had probably the toughest spot of any of, you're right in a way that it's the hard spot. Like, you're in essentially it's like a death spot, right? You're the second out of these big three things.
Yep.
These other two things have this massive critical attention, and you've got to go and deliver in a different way. Because you've got to sell this audience, a lot of them that may have never seen you before, on the next year.
Yep.
Different. It's a different target, and you're gonna have to start slow because you know, like the pop, like all the animal stuff, it takes the energy out of the crowd, and you build up and stuff again. But I thought they did some really cool things in this. So the one thing you mentioned earlier about the hesitancy, like with Aaron Wolf, like there was no hesitancy between moves. He's like,
yep.
Right. It's something that bugs me about Yota Tsuji, and has done for the last year and a half, maybe longer, is sometimes it's like he has to, you can see him thinking, right? So he'll do something, we do the move, and then you'll see him thinking. And he kind of like, there's time between the moves. And it's like that time where I'm like, come on, this needs to be sharp, it needs to be crispy. You need to have more like boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
And it'll help you as a babyface. Because when you're doing that slowing down, that's almost like a heel, right? It's like a control segment, it feels like. But he kind of has that. And they kind of addressed that in this one because they literally just like, every time that he did that, like he did that kind of walk around like that, Takeshita got him. And it was like that hesitancy, they played on it. And then when Takeshita had similar, like Tsuji got him and it was like bang. So it was like they just went after that. And then the whole story of that match, you know, and they played into the dojo stuff with like having him tap to like one of the most simple moves that every young lion does in the Boston Crab. But the story of it, like Tsuji was so focused. So it didn't matter what Takeshita did, he went for that midsection because it's like Boston Crab, Boston Crab. And he goes for it all the way through. And then when you get to the finish, like the crowd's just going apeshit. And they loved him. They loved him.
Oh, they
and
did.
I know there's been so much talk about him. And I told you this weeks ago. I think he's so much cleverer than people think. Yeah, this is a guy that came back, put himself with Tetsuya Naito. That's not fucking stupid, is it? You go and put yourself with the most popular wrestler in the company. You know what you're getting there when you do that in that group. You can do all this stuff. You can, you know, all this stuff with the V4. So they've reestablished the V4 belt, and he's got the global, and he's like, we don't defend this unless it's in the main event. on the world title, and I take the other one. The other one goes abroad, and it can be defended, or it can be defended against. You call it invaders, invaders. But like he's setting his stall out, and I mean, the idea is that you kind of merge old and new, right? So you have that play on nostalgia, and then people coming back who are like fans might play into that, and you make him the kind of establishment point of that. But the big thing that he's doing for me, and this showed up in Dash as well, what he did with the promo and stuff, and the way he did the belt reveal and that, is he is, and I keep going about this issue. So the way we talked about heels earlier, heels there to make baby faces, right?
Right.
Well, baby faces should want the crowd to come with them, and you have to tell the crowd to come with you. There's a tendency like you should just kind of like kill yourself in order to get like a pop, right? And it's so funny because you can get into, you've got to be careful when I say that, because you think it's like Matt Hardy territory, but that's not what I mean. It's like you play to the crowd to get them to come with you. So you say to them, actually, I need you. And they'll go for it. Like they go ape shit. Like so every time like he looked like he struggled, he just turned to the crowd and be like, please help me. Please help me. And they responded in kind. They were like, yes, this is our guy. We're going to get, that sort of thing. And it just brought like that energy that it needed. And then into them finals, kind of the final exchanges were just so good. Crowds just going crazy. And then, when he puts on the crab, fair play to Takeshita for tapping to that, because not everybody would have sold on that. But it was the right finish, playing into everything they did before, with Tanahashi and everything. So it was like fantastic. Yeah, great response. I thought he did, phenomenal. Like Takeshi, you get what Takeshi's going to do in a big match. Yeah, it's a guy that's headlined many a show. But it was a chance for Tsuji to step up, to show that he can be the guy that can lead this company. And that's 2 years. Same with Evil. Like it's 2 years in a row. Like you've given that thing in the dome. Last year with David Finlay. This year with Takeshita, and he's gone. Yep. Okay, I get it. Let's do it. Bang. And look, these guys have got to be in these spots now. They've got to do it. They've got to be there. And he has to be the first one. And he's so strong on who he is. I think he works it out, and he's strong about what he believes he wants in New Japan, and having a clear vision after years of kind of wishy-washy, mudded. Like look, because take Cyclops won it right last summer. So when he wins the title back off Goto, and the build-up looks great on paper, ended up shit in reality, right?
Yeah.
And he has this vision of what he wants the character to be. He's going to be a dickhead heel, and the young guys are going to overcome him. And then they just kind of abandoned it, right? It's just like, we don't care. Like, we're going to put you against Ren Narita, and then we're going to have you like wrestle Takeshi in a G1, and like none of it makes. And you're going to lose the belt to Takeshi, outsider, essentially not a young New Japan guy. So it's like you don't really know what's going on. It's like all over the shop. But this one, it's like they seem to have very clear vision. This is what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We knew that there was creative lined up for him going forward, and we hadn't heard anything about Takeshi, which was kind of a giveaway that he was getting everything before even we got to the Tanahashi stuff. But it was like, they're thinking about this. They have the organization, and then obviously they do the afters. Have you ever seen Jake Lee before this, by the way?
Yes, he did It was another show off that he did where he showed up for something and came out. I've seen him before. Yeah.
Okay, so he got like a pretty big pop when he came out for 10-man, and when he pinned Hiromu, I should have probably worked that one out. But so they literally mimicked exactly what happened with 2020 with the Double Gold Dash. So after Naito won the belt in that one, Kenta attacked him.
Yes,
and it was like it was this huge thing because they didn't allow Naito the roll call, and the idea was that you can go back and do that again, which they did. They went back a few years later. Naito does the roll call. That's the selling point of the dome, essentially. So the idea is to kind of do something similar here with Jake Lee. And I've seen like real hatred for this a little bit. And I've tried to read very little. I've tried to listen to very little because I just wanted to, how we felt about it sort of thing and how that maybe differentiates. You can judge yourself or what else you listen to. But the thing about it to me is that I don't think you lose too much in that attack. Whether you care about it shakily or not, you can digress that amongst yourselves. But it's like, this isn't Tsuji's big moment. It's the first of, you would hope, but it's not his big closing Tokyo Dome moment. He's not the main event. He's not that guy.
Right.
You know, you're in the semi-main event. The main event is Okada and Tanahashi. That's the focus on that point of the show. So if you're going to do an angle like that, this is the place to do it, because eventually he's going to have that closing thing. You know, he's going to have that closing moment. And I think there's a couple other things that I thought were really clever going into Dash with him, before I talk about what you kind of should do with him this year either way, is that one, like the belt reveal. So everyone's waiting for like the V4 sort of thing. So he comes out and he's got like his full jacket on and he's got the global on his shoulder. And you can feel like a murmuring as it come through the thing. And which is funny, because as he came out, like the people in like the blocks next to like the entrance were just going ape shit. And I was like, oh wow. Because you kind of, I don't know, like we maybe have our thing about how popular is it, but they like, you know, these hardcores, and it's mostly Japanese crowd. I actually think Dash had a more Japanese crowd by a long way this year than it did last year, in terms of the split. But they were going apeshit for him, and he comes out and it's like, you can feel it, right? You know he's got this thing, but there's like an anticipation, and he builds it up, then he does it, and it's like, so they pop for that, and then they did a promo, and he does the smart babyface stuff. You know, we already talked about him doing the other thing I really like in babyface is the moment of kind of bringing you with you. But he does that smart babyface stuff where he's like, Jake Lee, you attack me? You're gonna have to do more than that. I'm not giving you a match. Like, fuck off. Like, sort it out. So you get that kind of agency back from the previous day, where so you didn't have the agency there, but then you do that, and obviously then the heel's gonna have to do something dastardly to earn a match, but then you defeat him. So it's like really simple booking that makes the babyface like immediately look strong. And maybe you don't see that on the, and people go, oh yeah, but it's not in front of the big crowd. But what they want him to do is like convert the people that are watching Dash because of Wrestle Kingdom are the people that they want to go to, I don't know, the anniversary show back in Otta in 2 months, who want them to go to Osaka for a new beginning, who they want to go to Sakura Genesis, the Dominion, you know, all those sort of shows. So the idea is to convert into there. And look, is Jake Lee a perfect answer? No, but then again, it's a build-up point. So you go into him, you know, in that faction, you got potentially an Andrade thing to do, which, considering Tsuji's connections and kind of styles that he's kind of getting from CMLL, is quite a good one that you could possibly do. You're going to do the Gabe Kidd stuff. You've got this thing now where they've got the Unbound Company faction, but you can see like in the promo for that, you can see like Finlay in the corner going, oh, I'm not the boss dog anymore. We'll see. And it gives them options. So they've done a really good job of establishing him as this is our top guy in the last few weeks, especially. And it needed to happen. There needed to be this changing of the guard because of everyone that they're losing. But also you've got this kind of faction shake-up, and it's preparation for future, because now, like, if Finlay, say it's like, for example, let's take David Finlay, right? If he stays, then he could turn on Tsuji, you know, like you've done this without me sort of thing, and you've got a program that can run. If he doesn't, then he can do the same thing. And then he can do it, you know, he can put Tsuji over on the way out, but you're not scrapping and going, who the fuck's going to lead the Bullet Club War Dogs now? You know, who have we got as a leader? Are they leaving? Are this leaving? Is there guys from LIJ that want to take extra dates? You know, like Hiromu's already been in Noah, had a fantastic match from everyone that we, you know, everyone live here that said like just incredible match on at the Budokan show. Is he going to do more stuff outside? Can you work that in? Is Shingo going to do more stuff outside? Are you going to work that in? So it gives some more kind of scope on that. And it's like preparation going forward. So no matter what happens within that group now, you can use stuff, but also you don't have to be this caught out behind like they were like the Jeff Cobb shit or stuff like that last year where we don't. What the fuck do we do now? There's no way the fuck do we do now. There's a plan. And you can see that.
Well, I think the Jake Lee stuff, like I get people being disappointed. He's certainly not the first person, but I'm also kind of questioning, like, why would you want to burn like a Gabe Kidd match or, you know, some of these other matches that people are suggesting, like with his first defense, right?
Yep.
Like, you know, let it be something fairly straightforward and, you know, let him beat somebody easy and then get into it a little bit more difficult. If he's fighting Jake Lee's on his third and fourth defense, then there's like a bigger conversation to be had. But I think for the first one, it's not the end of the world. I get why people are disappointed about it, but I don't know. It didn't. Yeah. I felt like the whole thing was so
just
successful.
so unbothered. I was so unbothered by it because I think they achieved everything they should have done with the match, and I think they, in that moment. And yeah, it's not his big moment, and I think you can play off that. So you can do two things: you can have him establish himself fully with the reign and go long and do that, or you have him, you know, somebody turns on him, say, take Finlay, and then you have him chase a G1. You know, the one benefit of what they did last year is he's never won a G1 yet. So you have that, and then you can do a dome moment and have him, you know, potentially win the title at the dome and have the closing moment. Because if you do that, then that's your big moment, right? So this is your precursor to your big moment in a sense, in a weird way. So it's like, yeah, he's got the top belt, he's got the V4, you know, he's the global, he's talking like the guy, like he gets it. He's working people like to an incredible degree. So there's weird news articles and stuff about him. Just like, the fuck, like, oh my god, like, don't tell me this guy's not clever. But yeah, it's like you still have the moments on the table then, so you can go either way with that. But you just have to keep the focus on him. He is the right guy for now. I think if you can't see that at this point, I think you're insane. Like, he is the right guy for right now. I think Takeshita did a phenomenal job. I think he did a phenomenal job. I thought the way he carried himself at Dash, the press conferences, Tsuji, just like everything. Kind of ask for more. Like, you need these guys to step up. And I was talking to someone last week, and it was like, you know, they talk about him, kind of, he has still a little bit of hesitation. He's not always kind of like the most. But I said, the only way you're going to get through this is if you put them in that spot. They have to do it now. And once you do, like, it's sink or swim. And so far, he's done nothing but swim. And that's not me being like, oh, he's special guy. But I always said, like, the biggest thing about him is how he adapts. It's what we saw when he was on Excursion with us. You know, he was the guy that we didn't expect to adapt as quick, and he was the one that moved further forward quicker. So he's always learning, always thinking. Apparently can work half the West, which is amazing. And but yeah, he has it right now, and you just have to keep that momentum going for him. And yeah, I don't know if Jake Lee's the best. It doesn't really matter. It's about where it goes, not where it is now. And I think the presentation of Dash made me think, yeah, I don't worry about that, because they made you the smart guy there. They made you the guy in that regard. And the pop for, funny enough, the way that they did it, and this is how you know it, like, it works in that regard, is that the pop for the promo was much even louder than the pop for the belt. So he got them invested in him, not a piece of nostalgia at the end of that thing, you know. It's real good.
It's good, and it's going to be interesting to see how the year progresses and who his opponents are and how things go. So we'll be keeping our eye on Yota Tsuji, and a lot of women screaming his name during that.
Oh, the whole thing, like, Yota! Yota!
It was great.
Just like crazy, like how much of that stuff we was, considering like how people talk about him sometimes. It's like, yeah, it's a smile as well. Like when he did that smile, when he lifted up and they did the camera shot from underneath, it was just like, and the crowd just going fucking ape shit. They just, I was like, oh, you've got him. You proper got him now. And then they went into that sequence at the end. But yeah, I'm much higher probably on that one than you are. Just because I thought they achieved so much. I thought it was a great match in terms of the way it built. They knew that the crowd was going to be burnt from the Aaron Wall finish, and they also knew, like, you also don't want to take away from Tanahashi and Okada. So they, for the spot they were in, for what they needed to do, I thought they executed everything as perfectly as they could have. I thought both of them were fantastic, and we'll see what happens with Takeshita now. We'll see what his role is with New Japan going forward. You've established him as an IWGP champion, essentially, even if you've not got everything else that comes with that. But we'd like to see him do more and maybe different things, but it's hard, you know. I agree. I don't think the dual contract thing works for me at the top level. No. I don't think that you can establish that and make it work. Special attraction and wrestlers from CMLL, it's a bit easier for them in some regard, because, you know, the matchmaking is different, the way they build programs is different from New Japan. You need less of that touring champion sort of thing, and more of the kind of, here's a match on a Friday night, here's a 6-man, enjoy this. So it's harder with New Japan, especially, and the distance too. But we'll see.
I think it requires a level of coordination between promotions that's almost impossible to get at this point. Mm-hmm. Especially when they're owned by different people and with different. They have different
philosophies.
Yeah, and different philosophies, like you said.
Different booking ways.
And there's so many people that are so quick to be like, he's a heel here and a face here. It's like, all right, let's just everybody calm down. All right, so let's move on to the main event and the reason why a lot of people were there. Tanahashi's retirement match against Okada, which he did lose after, excuse me. I'm sorry about that. After about a half an hour long match that was, from my perspective, pretty fucking incredible. I thought it was incredibly well done. I thought Okada was just, again, Tanahashi was unbelievable. And I think you expected that from him. Like, I don't think there was, he basically dug deep and gave you everything he had and was able to pull off a match that was incredibly well done. I thought Okada did an absolutely unbelievable job with the timing. I thought his timing was just spectacular. So many small moments where the way he really sort of tortured the audience in specific it's like, any moment where you thought, okay, people are going to try and cheer for him right now, he was like, oh no, fuck, you're not. Like, he was like, not cheering for me today. And then just like, there's like a lot of little touches, like that count out spot was so perfectly genius. I loved it so much. I just thought it was a fantastic match and just a fantastic way to go out. And I'm sorry the guy didn't get Nakamura. I know that's what he wanted, but it's hard to say this was.
How do you know that? Can you read minds?
No, I'm not you. So
we'll talk about that in a minute.
But what else could you have asked for? I mean, you can compare it to other retirement matches and everybody's different, but I don't see how you could ask for anything better than this. Maybe you could get something different from it, but I don't see how you get anything better from it. I don't think he lost anything by not winning it. I don't know. I just thought it was great. It was incredibly emotional. And that's even before you got into the post-match, which we'll discuss separately.
So the thing about this is that everything they did worked as well. So the Okada playing kind of for most of it, like the AEW character, the heel character, worked perfectly. Yep. Because it angered people. Like, it angered people. And
people were fucking furious.
Yeah, and they wanted the Rainmaker, like I did, right? Like, it fucking got me when, like, a few months.
He did.
Yeah, same thing. So, like, we want the Rainmaker, we want that guy, but we're not getting that guy. We're getting this asshole, who's like not doing a Rainmaker pose, he's sticking his middle finger up at us. Who's lifting Tanahashi off the mat rather than pinning him. So more punishment. And the crowd just like, they fucking hated that. They absolutely fucking hated it. It was brilliant. And then you get to the bits where there was a real weird, I don't know if this come across on TV, but what it did was it created this autumn thing towards the end where every time like Tanahashi got like a major piece of offense and they thought like he had a chance of winning, they go crazy. And then Okada would hit like the drop kick or the tombstone or anything, and the place would drop, it like go silent, like they were so scared. It was scared. It was like literally they're terrified that this could be the end. This could be the end.
Way they cut it, the way they like you're saying, the way they grew and then cut it and then grew and then cut it, and so you'd have this hope spot with Tanahashi and then it would get nipped in the butt, and then you build to this hope spot with Tanahashi and then it made you hate Okada more. Yeah. Like, it was just masterful in the way that it was just like, fuck this guy.
It's like we used to talk about Jay White being like the cut-off wrestler, right? He takes that kind of energy. But this was like that to the extreme, like every single time. And you just felt in the crowd, like you could feel them like shaking, like please don't bonus that. And in the end,
especially because like at the beginning, he was like so much of the match, he was toying with him. Like, I don't need to work that hard. And then for the end, for the realization, obviously, to be, I do actually have to work this hard. He isn't giving up. Like, you know what I mean? That was, I just thought the structure of it was just really perfectly done.
There was a funny moment when he did the high flow to the outside. I was like, I'm sure we wrote like that was one of the things they asked for. Like, I need a guy that can do like catch me on a high flow to the outside.
Okada was so gentle with him. Like, I don't know. This came across on the broadcast more. Like, here's the thing about this match. Tanahashi is not at his best, right? Like, at no point did I was not really able to forget that I was watching a wrestler who probably should have retired 2 years ago, and that people were probably concerned about his knees. Like, there were definitely moments where I was like, oh, but I also didn't feel like he tried to do too many things he couldn't do. And I feel like he was careful with himself in a way that was like sort of masked some of the issues, but there were definitely moments where I was like, oh, Okada's being so gentle with him. Like, it just, that was one of them where I was like, he's catching this guy, he's putting his entire body underneath him, and it's like, go for it, buddy, whatever you want to do. But yeah, it was like, that's the part where I'm like, it wasn't a perfect match in that way. Like, I
don't care. You don't need it to be perfect.
You don't need it to be.
It's carried by emotion.
The age of him helped with the whole point of it. Like, I don't know. It was like Sting in that way where you're just like, oh my God, this guy's fucking old. Let him go take a nap. Seriously.
The thing for me is that I thought the story that they told with Okada through it was masterful. So, we've spoken about his plans to kind of use that stuff going in to ensure that it wasn't just like a play in the hits match, which had come from people's direct conversations with Okada. And it was like, when he did it, it was like, okay, but I can't beat this guy as the asshole. Like, he keeps coming back as this guy that's not me, that's not authentic. And the fact that he has to go back to the Rainmaker, to New Japan Okada. He has to beat that guy. That's the only guy that can beat this Tanahashi. Not whatever his AEW thing is, like, or whatever thing. It has to be that guy. And when he did like the Rainmaker pose, that's when I was like, oh, he's winning. Because it was like, as soon as he did that, it was like, right, you've moved that away now. So we've lost that heel face dynamic. So it becomes, it's not about like Okada or like kind of authority over Tanahashi or that sort of thing. It just becomes like, this is a respect thing. So by doing that, he's showing Tanahashi respect at the end. Yes. In the end of that match, it becomes like, I fully respect you. You know, you've earned it. Like, you don't deserve that character. You deserve the real me. And
to the audience,
they loved it like that because they saw
it. To
that.
the audience, they're like, he's like, I'm going to take this thing. I'm going to give you this thing you're wanting, which is me doing the Rainmaker, but I'm also going to do it in service of me taking away this thing you want, which is for Tanahashi to win. Like, so fuck you.
But I do, because it's such an ultimate show of respect.
Yes.
And then straight away after, you know, when he bows and he speaks to him, you can see like Okada crying, Tanahashi crying.
Oh, yeah.
But it made that moment. So what was clever is, so in a way, you have Okada win. Right, you leave the prospect of the Tsuji match on the table if they could ever get that done, because that's obviously, if you don't believe Tsuji's not been vying for them with like 3 years of comments, like,
oh yeah,
this is a disciple of Tetsuya Naito. Like, think about this for 5 minutes. But you leave that stuff on the table, but without being a detriment. But the moment actually becomes, even though he loses the match, the moment remains about Tanahashi. It's not Okada beat Tanahashi in his last match. It's Okada had to go back to that New Japan Rainmaker to show respect enough to beat Tanahashi in his last match because of how incredible Tanahashi was. That's the story of the match. It's not the other way around. And that's what makes it so special. So then after that, like, you go again, some people are like slightly disappointed, but in most part, it was just like, right, okay, we need to show like love for Tanahashi now. And it just moves on. And that's the difference. So I say, I was saying not to contrast to the Cena thing, but I thought there was two things around that. Is like, they tried to do too much with the Cena thing. It wasn't about Cena.
No. So
they're like, oh, we're going to establish this gun for character, and we're going to do this stupid thing, but we're going to do a stupid finish. You know, we've not really thought it through in terms of what it means, or will the crowd accept it because we've actually sold it to them over months and months and months. Didn't do any of that stuff. So they just did it, and then obviously, like, the crowd didn't. They were just like, this is bullshit, because you've not prepared it in the match, you've not prepared it in like the build up. You want to make something out of it, you can't make something out of it. I don't think. Here's the thing about, you know, retirement matches about the guy retiring, not about the people that beat them, right?
Correct.
No one gives a shit who beats them. They just care about, I saw the last match. So you can't do that. You're not going to make a guy of this. So it's like, what's the point of doing that? Like, it needs to be something that pays homage to the person that was there, you know. And this is the guy that turned New Japan around, who took them out of the dark ages. You know, it's given them their first kind of sellout at the Tokyo Dome in 20 years. Like, that's who this guy is. This is Tanahashi. This is the greatest babyface of all time to me, you know, and I think to a lot of people. It's like, it's about him. It's not about Okada. It's not about whoever else you could have thrown in that role. It's about him. And that's what they did. And that's what the story of the match was. And that's how it finished. And that's why the reception was so different from the crowd and from everybody else to what you saw with the whole John Cena thing. And the other thing about the difference, and I think this is the thing with the ceremony as well, is you felt that difference between inauthentic and authentic.
Yeah.
And that didn't mean that they didn't have pre-prepared stuff, because they had the cards that they gave everybody when you came in. You know, they were holding up all the cards all the way around, sort of thing. So they did like little things for the crowd, but it was just authentic and authentic. And like, it's all I could see in my mind every time. Every time I looked at something that was happening, it was like, that's what you could see. That was the difference between the two.
Well, it's like, we're going to give John Cena 2 belts that he doesn't hold, so we can have a photo op with them and our logo before, you know what I mean? But yeah, there's no comparison really. I mean, I think you could say things are done differently, but like the match going right into the post-match and Tanahashi's genuine emotion throughout the whole thing was just like, I don't see how anybody wasn't crying during that. Like, him just not being able to hold it together at different points was so touching. And he was clearly so tired, and he was clearly like so overcome with emotion that it was just genuinely, the whole thing was just spectacular. Like, I don't see how anybody could top that as a post-match retirement ceremony. Even the sponsor, even this point where they had to take pictures with sponsors, and he was like, yes, thank you very much.
But they were like the million yen seats. They were like,
I know, right?
Crazy money seats. Yeah.
the point where he's trying to stop crying so he can take a photo at the beginning was just, he's like, I'm trying. It was with the Bushiroad guy president. He was desperately trying to get a straight face so he could have a normal picture. And it was just impossible. I don't know how he manages to cry that much without his nose running. I was so impressed. I feel like that's a thing. What did you think overall of the post-match ceremony? You know, I mean, I have a couple of comments about the end of it, but I thought the whole thing was just nicely done. I thought the way people came out, I thought it genuinely felt like Ibushi wasn't supposed to be there. And I kind of like that because it's sort of like one of those things where you're like, was he supposed to be there or not? I almost don't want to know.
So it's one of them that I know, like Fightful put out Ospreay and Omega, and it actually might have been better if they didn't, in a way, because like the way the crowd reacts and stuff.
Yeah.
So we knew that they'd invited them and Jay White, and I was really happy to see Jay White there. I was glad he took that invitation. I was really happy, and he got a big pop and stuff, and you know, because it's like these people were people that Tanahashi. These were requests of Tanahashi. These are the guys that he requested from the US and from AEW. So it's like, but yeah, he's like a product of Tanahashi. He's one of his guys as well. So it was like, that was really cool to like see someone that obviously he was mentoring at times to come back and do that and be the first guy in that chain. And then, you know, it was good Will. And then obviously Kenny came out to his nice music. We liked Kenny being out to the good music. And then, yeah, so Ibushi was actually wandering around outside the dome before the show. Just wandering around, like people kept sending me pictures of him. I'm like, what? He's just wandering around, like hobbling around outside. And I'm like, why? It's like, because it's Ibushi. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, fine. But yeah, it was hard to watch him kind of struggle his way down. You could see like the weight of it on him.
It was very sweet the way that, like, you know, Phantasmo and Desperado and Shota were like, we'll get you in the ring. Like, don't, we'll get you in and we'll get you out. Don't worry about it. We got you. Like, they were very kind, I thought, in the way that they did that.
Yeah, and then obviously they moved on to more of the historical figures sort of thing, and then we got towards the end, and I turned to Tim, so I'm sat next to Tim, joshing around, who also edits on Newsletter Right to Stardom, just incredible human, and I'm like, where is he then? He's lying. He's not in Hiroshima. Like, where is he? Like, he's got to be here. And obviously then they hit the Naito music and the lasers come up and then Naito, and then the masked man come out. I was like, that can't be Bushi. He's not brought Bushi to this ceremony. Like the one guy that doesn't belong here is like pointing out, like, you know, it's just be like, who doesn't belong in this picture? It's like, of course he does. And then he changed to that it's a god awful new thing.
It's not good.
He walks down with the GHC tag championships and stuff. But I thought it was a really,
7 minutes. I 7 minutes from the point his music hit until he fucking made it to the ring.
That's Naito. Like, Tanahashi's tapping his watch. We're watching it on the screen, like pissing ourselves watching him tap his watch. But do you know what? That's a really important moment, Lowe, because, take out the stupidness with Bushi and whatever, but that has been, for their fandom, especially here, a real sore point, because we always joke about wrestling companies are not your football teams, but here they are. You have one company, you have your company, and that, with the popularity of LIJ and Tetsuya Naito, him leaving was a real sore point, and for them to do that, have that acknowledgement, and leave it, essentially Tanahashi left the door open for him, and you should, because they've done so much pairing up between what Tsuji's done this year in the Double Gold Dash that you've left a natural story there. What do you think of Tetsuya Naito and his knees and everything else? And it wasn't exactly signs of glory at the Budokan for Pro Wrestling Noah the other day, but you've left it on the table. And it was just a nice kind of, it was like a closure moment, essentially. If you want one closure moment out of that, it was that. And he needed to be there. You've got, Okada was obviously there. You're not going to have Nakamura. Maybe you should talk about that in a second. But so he needed to be there. He needed to be part of it. It needed to be a thing. And I was happy that they did that, even if you think that. And then it was interesting was they took the photos, and I think, I said to someone yesterday, it felt like the adrenaline came off Tanahashi. And they said that, like, he was like, his knees were done. Like, there was a moment where when they were doing up to like the thing that went all the way around, like the little cart, like his whole thing was just, I'm done. Like, you could feel it. It's funny. He has the like, I'm never tired thing, and it was just like, yeah, you're tired. And you could see him like fighting his way onto the thing. And he said, so it's to me, like his what he was telling people afterwards was just like, at that point it was like, I just want it to be done. So he's going around like doing the waving. It's cool, it's great in a moment. He's just like, I want it to be done. I've had enough now. Like, get me off this thing. But in a good way. It was just kind of like, okay, that's it. But he was said to be extremely happy with how everything went, just over the moon.
He should have been. Like I said, I don't think you could have asked for anything better than that.
So, and just the whole way that they did it, the whole presentation, the interaction with the crowd, the air guitar, with the like Mexican wave, only Mexican wave I think I've ever joined in with in my entire life. Just phenomenal. And it was just perfect. Like, they couldn't have done anything more. And it's a tribute to him that this show was so big. Sponsors everywhere, by the way. So one thing I noticed this year predominantly, it was like, I've never seen so many sponsor logos around like Tokyo Dome.
It did seem like there was a lot more advertisement.
Huge amount, like very, very visible. Whether that's him or a Wolf or combination of the two, doesn't matter, but it's very important. We've talked a lot about their financial situation, about retaining talent, about having to, be financially kind of secure under Bushiroad themselves, because you can say, Bushiroad does this and that, but the idea is that their kind of division makes money, essentially.
Right.
So you need all that. But I thought, that was very, very noticeable, but just phenomenal. Just everything that you wanted to be. It'll be something that people will be telling people in like 30 years, I was there for Hiroshi Tanahashi's retirement, probably whether they were here or not. Just be telling everybody that. And maybe more importantly was I thought the dash number. So New Year's Dash down at Otta, it was the biggest number they've done in that building since 2020. And that's after the Tanahashi retirement. That's not.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
So, and then with how much good stuff they did on that show, it's like that's your setup into the year. So the momentum that they're carrying out of that, it's not just like, oh, we're done. It's like there's something to follow up on. Here's these young guys, here's the Knockout Brothers doing their thing. Yuta Ice got an incredible promo, as much as we were all dying, because they have like wooden benches in Otta, and you get to a certain point, you're like, I can't feel my legs, I can't feel my hips. I gotta
stand up. Jesus Christ.
Awful, man. But like, he kind of got a fantastic promo at the end of that tag match. They did that. It was all built around the three of them with Oiro and them, and they had a lot to say themselves in that structure. Zach kind of let them go, and that worked perfectly. But there's those guys. They did some stuff with the Young Lions in the early matches that was like a sudden like hit to the head, because it was like, oh shit, like they're really going to go for this show. Everything they're doing with Unbound Company and the War Dogs and that sort of thing. The Will Ospreay appearance, obviously, did that. Well, that was such a funny promo, because it wasn't a babyface promo. He was like, oh yeah, I left and now you all suck. It was like, I think I turned to him, I was like, that's not babyface material. It sounded like so arrogant. But the fact that they're going to do something with Callum Newman, and that'll be interesting, because if he's like champion at the end of the year, like how do you put Newman over is another story, but we'll see. But that was kind of interesting as well, and it gave like the show like a different level of like, oh, there's angles happening, there's something happening interesting here. And they're finally doing that kind of faction changes that we were talking about last summer. It was first talked to us about last summer, and it's like, oh, we're now actually going to do those sort of things. But it just feels like they have that organization, they have that momentum. It's about them carrying it forward, but it feels like they're set up to do, like, they're just such a stronger position. And it's one of them, you've got more open opportunities too, because you're not tied down to having this person or that person or this legacy to protect or that, but you don't have any of that. You just go, you guys. You still got to fix the shot over, no problem, but what's new? I think you just need to make him a heel Nepo baby and just get on with it. Because that one caught me out. So we're like, he comes out for the promo after the excellent tag main event. And like, I'm okay. And normally I'm just like, and when I went in, like, I remember going in the anniversary show in the same building in 2024, and it was like, there was a few boos, but it wasn't that bad. And this was just like, all behind us, like literally right behind us, a huge group of like Japanese fans. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't expect it to be so bad. And I was like, oh boy. Like, that didn't work. And to the point where like he starts speaking and they just completely fucking ignore him. They're just going to chant for Oiwa. Like, the whole crowd just like turned away from him to chant for Oiwa. And I was like, well, that's a natural heel. You just need to turn him heel. Like, and poor Umura gets dragged with him. And then the best thing about that was Taichi come out, did his thing, and was just like, they were like mimicking fighting, and he was like, fucking children, I'm going now. And he just walks off. Just like,
I do think there's a definite, you can draw a line between the way Umino looked in his main event last year in the Dome versus the way Tsuji looked this year. And I know it was the main event, but if it had been, I think it was like night and day from my perspective in terms of just confidence and presentation and everything. So I do hope they figure something out with him, because it's not
Yeah.
working.
And it's funny because it's the same thing that happened in development when they went on excursion. So they both came to the UK. They both came to Rev Pro in Portsmouth. One adapted, one went forward, and one went backwards and learned every bad habit in British wrestling. You know, and again, you could see that there. So again, you gave Umino you gave him the spot to shine last year. It didn't work. You gave Tsuji the spot to do it, and he took it. And the only way you're going to find out is put them in their spots, and that's what they've done, and that's where you've got what you've got. And the guy that we thought was going to be the guy isn't right now.
Yep.
He's hated by a lot of their hardcore element. So it's like, figure it out. We'll see how you do. But some of the other stuff on that show I just want to mention as well before we say anything else. We'll talk about some interesting interviews lately. The women's match with the double titles with Suri and Sayaka Mitani. So it's come out now that Sayaka Mitani's taking some time off.
Yep.
That match nearly didn't happen. And the fact that it did, and they did what they did with it, and it got the time, is incredibly impressive considering the circumstances with that one. You can look at it and think, should it have happened similar to the G1 final with Takeshita or the Naito G1 final? Maybe not, but they were very careful. If you go back and watch it, you'll watch like the bumps that Saya takes, and the way that Suri protects her is pretty incredible as well. But they did a phenomenal job in a limited spot. And obviously they made the TV broadcast because they're really pushing Sayaka Mitani this year as like basically like an asset for Bushi Road, beyond just being a stardom wrestler. And so that was really important in that sense. Got great reception in the Dome as well. It wasn't one of these things where it's like, oh God, there's a women's match on the show, which is what it felt like in recent years in terms of some of the reactions. So that was awesome, like the reception to them. And like, it was cool to have Suri win, actually, because I think everyone thought it was like a foregone conclusion. They'd go the other way. So then when that happened, it was like, oh, okay, then you've got a natural story to come back to as well. The 5v5, so Andrade, he did a lot more at Dash, and he's doing the Gabe Kid match, and we'll see. And I imagine they're going to do a Tsuji match. But he looks massive.
Yeah, he looks enormous.
Yeah, he looked like he's kind of like, it's like swervy, like the old Andrade.
Yeah.
So there was that. But he looked good in the Dash match, so we'll see how he kind of goes going forward. The 5v5 was kind of fun, and it kind of showed like the value of what they did in World Tag League really shone through. So people like the Driller Shingo stuff. They loved the Hiromu Finley stuff. Oh my God. Like, crowd were just so into that. Hiromu was probably the most over guy in that match, and he's the guy that they put the least amount of effort in. So, of course. But looking at what Hiromu's done, like recently, looking at Noah, looking at that, like again, unfortunately, the Naito thing makes it harder for him again. But man, I wish they'd do something more with him, because he can still go. He can still go. He can still deliver. The crowd's still massively into him. But I'm kicking a dead horse at this point in that regard, aren't I? So, but yeah, the Finley Naito stuff was the Finley Hiromu stuff was just hilarious, and that was what picked the crowd up the most in that. The down point probably would be the junior match.
Yeah.
So it was too quick. They had too much House of Torture stuff. Instead of like platforming Fujita, which so many people had been speaking about, it became about Desperado and the Dookie thing from last year. But it just annoyed me because you could have done this last year, right? So you held off the Fujita win. So you had him win Best of Super Juniors. You hold him off at Dominion, that sort of thing, by then. And you say, okay, we're not going to go with him now because we're going to make for a bigger moment later. Okay, fine. And you could have done the thing where you had Dookie come back and maybe he loses to Vegeta and then he turns and joins House of Torture, where we skipped step 1, 2, 3, and 4 and just went straight to a House of Torture turn, because that's what we do with returning baby faces apparently last summer. And then you could have addressed the fact that he was injured in the match with Desperado at Wrestle Kingdom last year. He didn't do it. And then you leave this in gone. And then all of a sudden, we bring it back now and we have Desperado win. And it just felt like... If everything else was moving forward, this felt completely counterintuitive and moving backwards.
Yeah. And
I didn't get it. And it's like, is it just because it's a junior division? No one gives a fuck. I don't know. But it was like, it just felt so counterproductive. Like, we didn't achieve anything in that match at all. So that was that. The Rambo. I don't think there's too much to say about that, really. Obviously, they wanted to get everybody on the card, and it'd be great to have like all these other things. But what they kept saying, so what kept kind of coming out was like, we want people to remember certain things because they're not going to remember everything. So you can have like a 10-match card of great stuff, but they're not going to remember anything. So what are they going to remember? First thing they're going to remember is Tanahashi, right?
Right.
Second thing they're going to remember here is Aaron Wolf. And then you want them to remember, so as you look at the primetime broadcast, they want you to them to remember Yota Tsuji winning, and they want you to remember the Saya Kamatani story match. That's it. So these other things are there. And yes, it's not great in terms of the continuity of following so much of the product this year, where it's centered around Zack and centered around Goto. But it's like that's what their ambitions are. So you can work out and think, did they achieve their ambitions by doing it this way? And would it have been better to have like a 12-match card that goes for 5 hours that maybe isn't so susceptible for people coming in that will not watch New Japan so much? Or do you want this? And you get over the main people and you make them the most important. Do you think that, especially as someone who doesn't watch as much New Japan as I do, which for the last few years was probably better for you, to be honest. Do you think that they achieved their goals in terms of there was things that you felt was memorable in this show outside of the Tanahashi match?
I think so. I mean, I think it the Wolf debut was great. Mm-hmm. I think I probably was swayed too much by listening to, like you said, American podcasters shitting on the guy, rather than waiting and seeing. And from my perspective, he exceeded. And I thought Yota Tsuji, like you said, he looked like the guy. Yep. So I think that was a success overall. I think, it does feel like there's definite down spots in regards to what they're choosing to pay attention to, but no promotion in wrestling has ever been able to successfully do everything fantastically all at once. Mm-hmm. So if the juniors are like a victim of that, are like, well, this is not getting the care and attention that it probably deserves, or, isn't going the way it should go, then, that's what's going to happen. So it's kind of hard to be like, hey, they did a fantastic job with these 3 things or 4 things, and then maybe not as great a job with the other stuff. I don't know. I think
you got to balance it with the fact that you have such big turnover now as well,
Right.
So you have to go, well, you have these things to focus on because we don't know what's happening with this person. We don't know what's happening with that person. And there's a lot of contracts that aren't up in, the traditional end of January, February window because they're going to the summer because of what happened last year. Right. So you still got kind of movability, but there's always stuff kind of happening. It's a much more changeable landscape, and you've got to deal with that too. So in terms of, for me, it's like focusing on a few things or a few people. Agreed. It's probably better for them in the long-term perspective to build the people they're going to build around that are going to stick there than to be kind of jumping about to and fro and trying to focus on about 12 different people.
And it does feel like they have better momentum and more momentum than they did last year. But I do think it's worth pointing out that, and I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen, but it does feel like New Japan always starts the new year off pretty strong and then hits the spring and suddenly it's like, oh shit, like what the fuck are we doing? So I think it'll be interesting to see if they can avoid that this year.
What do you think of the G1 announcement for the Now Arena in Chicago?
I'm kind of interested because I don't feel like that New Japan, I haven't checked the tickets on this one recently, but I don't feel like that New Japan show that they're doing in, is it New Jersey, is selling really well right now.
It's a weird location for that one. It would have been better to leave it in San Jose, but
I am also kind of curious as to whether this means, obviously we know that there were AEW wrestlers who wanted to do the G1 last year, but, and didn't, and not through any fault of, I think it's worth pointing out, not through any fault of AEW's, through New Japan just kind of dropping the ball on that.
Well, I think they felt they couldn't afford them, but no one would tell them, and that's a little bit of Japanese business culture of not wanting to let people down.
Yeah, say, hey, we can't pay your bill. I think it'll be interesting to see whether they do that this year, whether any of those losses, if they have contract losses in the spring, or if they have turnover in the spring, leads to them bringing people in to do, part of the G1.
Yeah. It's interesting timing because it's right in the run up to All In this year. So as opposed to last year where it was after All In, this year it'd be right in the run up. So I'm not sure how many you'd see. Maybe someone like a Ricochet could fill that gap, but I would.
He has a belt now, so.
Well, that doesn't mean shit. Well, there we go. But maybe that's the type of guy that, second time lucky could fill that kind of spot because he could go and do that and it wouldn't be as disrupted to their top line plans.
Right.
But for me, it's like the big thing about when you look at the US presentation, so they're very much dropping the amount of US shows they're doing. And that's something obviously that's been reevaluated coming out of the California show last year in that run. But also, it's New Japan shows. They are not strong shows. They are not some homage to 2017, 2018 New Japan. They are putting on, this is our New Japan product. This is our New Japan product with New Beginning, in New Jersey. This is our New Japan product putting the G1, I imagine it'd be one of the first nights similar to what they did in Dallas in 2019. It's that product. So we're going to showcase you what New Japan is now, not New Japan was. And that gets rid of that weird kind of hybrid thing that was going on. It wasn't benefiting anyone, to be honest. I think it didn't make the money it probably should have done. And also was a detriment because it wasn't their product. So then you had something like Zack and Goto come across and you put in the semi-main event. And, just the whole thing was weird. And it's not worked. You can feel it. And because it won't work, because then if you're over reliant on kind of AEW wrestlers and stuff and people that used to be in your company and are now in AEW, or people can just go watch AEW. That's not right. So I think it's interesting to go with that venue. I think Wintrust would probably be better, but they're obviously quite bullish about it. But it's a different strategy and one that to keep an eye on, but feels like it's at least, if anything, more authentic and more kind of targeted than what they've been doing previously. So yeah, I'm pretty interested in that one. Excuse me. Should we address the Tony Khan interview?
Yes, please. Yes, Tony Khan did an interview with Case Lowe. And again, I think we've said this before. I have to give Case Lowe is very good at interviewing Tony Khan. I think you and I both agree that he's extremely good at getting Tony Khan to answer stuff in a way that he doesn't with other interviewers. I think Tony Khan's very good at filibustering his way through interviews, and Case Lowe actually does seem to get actual information out of him. So, great job by him. But he did get asked about the article that you wrote about Tanahashi. And he did one of those wonderful non-denial denials, which was fun to watch. I probably should have pulled this up, but he basically called you a mind reader, Trish.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. So here's the thing on this, right? So yeah, you're right. A lot of people have noticed that it wasn't a denial. A lot of people here have noticed, including people in New Japan in the office, have noticed that it was noted it is a non-denial. And I don't think he's in a position where he can deny it, because here's the truth about that story, right? The story, and we did not use the word "stop the match." I know others did. No. We didn't use the match. We talked about severe consequences. We didn't use some of the more colorful descriptions that I was given from people in New Japan. For people, other people in contact, about Tony going ballistic or, losing his mind or throwing a tantrum. We didn't use any of that. Actually, I said to someone who in AEW who we worked with for this story, who's very close to both the Elite and Okada, that, who listed several discussions with both that we used to, show you what Okada was thinking going into the match. Yeah, we did. I didn't read his mind. No, we just talked to people who literally relayed exactly what he said.
Right.
But when we talked to them, I was like, he's not denying. And he's like, well, he won't. And I'm like, yeah, he won't, because this story comes from as high up in New Japan as it can.
Right.
It's from the very top. And it's like, so he can't, without risking kind of anything, kind of say anything else, I don't think. I think it's a very, very, very difficult position to be in. Is it slightly disrespectful to me? I couldn't care less. At the end of the day, there's no alternative history at the moment. Like, you want an alternative history, you say things didn't happen or this and that, well, we need to tell people that it's, because as far as the feedback that we have from people in AW, it's fair and accurate. From the people in New Japan, nobody has any issues. And we've had further on that this week, not just to me, but I know that people in our office have spoken to people on our network that are over here too. And so no one has any issues with it. They're pretty happy with the story. And look, I don't care, because at the end of the day, I know how strong that research is. The people that we work with across multiple promotions know. And what comes to it is, I don't care if we piss off Tony Khan, I don't piss off Gato, I don't care if we piss off Paul Levesque, I don't care who we piss off. That story needed to be out there, and we told a story.
I also think it's a weird thing for somebody to be annoyed about, because quite frankly, I thought it was a very fair story to him. And
we were fairer to him. Considering like the
other people were shitting on him like crazy.
Considering the descriptions of him, like I even made a note of like that we we went and got secondary sourcing on the thing around and Gabe Kidd story back in January, where which came from I'm reliably informed someone in a New Japan office that discussed his behavior around the Gabe Kidd match and with Kenny Omega, and we went and got that second source, and then we got denials,
right.
So I thought we were more than fair to him, so I thought he was probably the one we were the most fair to, and I
don't think he came across badly in that story at all. In fact, I think it was one of those situations where you were like, you understood why he felt the way he did.
But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, fine if you want to say that, but deny something. I was okay, wait, is that it? You're going to deny something? Like, I was been waiting for a month for you to deny something, and expected it. I thought they'd be running like a Fightful story like he does with Wade Keller every time, like, with a slightly adjusted wording, or with Dave, so that's what I was kind of expecting. But I was like, yeah, okay, I can read minds. Well, unfortunately, like, it's not reading minds. Like, we're talking to people in your company. People high up in your company. It's inside your house. So it's essentially...
Be afraid.
Yeah, no. But that's
Don't
it.
Be afraid.
So,
there's nothing bad happening.
No, not at all. But it was a very interesting non-denial. And a lot of people have picked up on that. And yeah, we've had people here pick up on that and kind of give it a bit of a nod. But it's, in fact, the feedback here from people we've spoken to previously and then this week has been really cool on that. So I'm glad to have written it. I'm glad that we put that story out there. It remains accurate. I will say that. And what did you think? So on the back of that, what did you think of Nakamura not being allowed to kind of be part of the closing ceremony and for Tanahashi, considering that he's the guy that Tanahashi spoke about the most? He's the guy that Tanahashi's written about with the Aces High stuff and his autobiography, everything. The guy that he came through with, the guy who he won his first championship in the Tokyo Dome from, all that sort of stuff.
I think everybody has to make difficult decisions. I think sometimes one of the things I find frustrating is when people talk about this kind of stuff, there's sort of a removal of all responsibility from the wrestlers themselves. Yeah. Right. And sure. I think with Nakamura, it's like, Nakamura made choices. Mm-hmm. He made choices in the way he handled the situation and what he wanted, mm-hmm. that certain things were more important to him than other things. Right. And, sure. That's fine. I have no objection to that. The man's life is his life. He can choose to do whatever he do. But this idea that he's not allowed to be there. He's not allowed to be there. Like, yeah, he's not allowed to be there. I'm confident that WWE would have made his life a living fucking hell if he had decided to just get on a plane and go do this ceremony without telling them or without notifying them or whatever. Right. They tried to put fucking Andrade under a, worldwide non-compete for a year without telling him. Right. Mm-hmm. Like that's the kind of bullshit you're dealing with. And I these are not good people. Okay. I don't think, based on other experience, based on things that I know, based on other things I've heard, I would be shocked if Tony Khan would have had an issue with Nakamura appearing at the retirement ceremony.
I don't think anybody would have an issue with that.
I don't think anybody would have an issue with it. WWE clearly had an issue with it, to the point that Nakamura didn't feel like he could have gone, right? And I do think that says something. I think there's a point sometimes where it's like, we love the wrestlers, we care about the wrestlers are put in difficult positions. Nakamura made choices. He wasn't able to be there, partially as a result of the choices he made.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm probably more on the wrestler's side than maybe you are on that. They made it as deliberately as difficult for him as possible. Like, he couldn't fly. Yes. So they brought him in to do a 1-minute pre-tape. It's petty, right? We're going to fly him in to do a 1-minute pre-tape, so we're going to leave him like practice. There's no time, and we're not going to let you go anyway. Order a video
6
or
hours,
anything.
Trish. Could have had 6 hours. He could have been there.
Yeah, no, it's too much of a risk. And
right.
If you've ever flown into Tokyo, you'll know that, Haneda, you've got an hour, but then if you're going into Narita, it's just difficult. And that's a lot to ask of somebody. But I thought it was a shame because of their relationship and their history. But also, I still think they missed an opportunity. I think they missed a huge opportunity not to just...
I don't disagree with you.
To disrupt... and essentially, if you want to look at it from the very dark way, to disrupt the AEW New Japan relationship, and maybe you can argue that there was some disruption there, but you had the opportunity to make major disruption and to build that relationship and to show that you could be a trusted partner potentially, and we all know they can't, but it's like the wolf before you eat the pigs, isn't it? You got to like put a mask on sometimes and just pretend, and they didn't do that either. So it's that arrogance essentially.
It's a very American arrogance. It's a very right-wing American arrogance of, I don't need to try. You're just going to do what I tell you to do. It's.
But they proved they didn't need that. They showed that they didn't need it. They didn't need WWE in that regard to deliver on Tanahashi's retirement. And then essentially the only guy that ends up harmed by that is Nakamura. Although I did find, what was really funny? It was like they spent I saw people the whole week like calling like Tsuji like a Fed agent and stuff for taking pictures of Nakamura, and then it was Takeshita that wore the badge. I know, right? With their friends. And I was like, you got to remember these people are people. Their relationships are interpersonal in terms of like that, rather than the companies that they work for. And that was a big reminder of that. You have all this bullshit like, oh, Tsuji's this, Tsuji's that, and then like Takeshi's like, yeah, I'm wearing the Nakamura armbands, and Tanahashi's doing the Nakamura pose. Oh, bless him, he proper struggled with that. It was
he really did.
Get down. It was like, oh no,
he really struggled there.
But it was a cool moment, and the crowd like went for it. They loved that. But really, really good show, really good kind of momentum coming out of it. It's up to them to kind of keep it. They're going to obviously be challenged around the contract situation. There's some that sound like they're pretty much committed. There are some to New Japan. There are some that are kind of weighing up their options. And you can see, like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to work out which one they could possibly be. And we'll just see what happens with them. But it's a positive outlook for the first time, it feels like, in a while. Getting rid of that stupid gold wingy belt, like
the butterfly belt, the Divas belt.
What the fuck that thing was. It's been cursed since the moment it came in. It killed Kota Ibushi's run stone dead. The moment they did that gold, the merging and stuff, it just killed it. And then he was done for. So. And I don't think we were talking about this the other week. I don't think you're trying to think of a truly memorable reign or something that actually meant something, and you couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Like, you can come up with good in ring, like the Shingo Takagi run was very good in ring, but it was like, it's in the middle of COVID and they don't really care about him. It was like, just give him the belt, just to look after it, But it didn't feel like anything. And you can say all the things about the wrestler makes the belt, but there has to be something in between. And there wasn't. And then it's like, let's just get rid of the fucking thing. And you see that old belt come back out, and you're like, that's the world title. And the fact that they're putting so much like emphasis on this is the belt that goes in the main event again, because it needs to be an attraction in itself, in a way. Like, right. We have a world title match, come out and see it, because we have Tetsuya Naito, we don't have Hiroshi Tanahashi, we don't have Okada, so you need these things. So the importance of that needs to be kind of reestablished. And if this Tsuji run does anything and it does that, then it's immediately successful in its aims,
Yeah,
as well as establishing him, because it needs to be like that now. It needs to be the most important thing in New Japan. We've had too long for a while now where it's not been. There's been too many semi-main events this year. And it's Tanahashi retirement year, but it's got to be the main event. Like, that title has always been the most important thing in New Japan. The things that people aim for, the people that people like will strive for. It was always well protected. You've got people like Tomohiro Ishii, who has never got near that belt in his whole life. Look at the like outcry for Goto, like how cool that was, because he never got there. He'd failed so many times. He was a nearly man. It didn't matter that he was a fantastic wrestler. It's like, it was hard to get there, to get that spot, to get that belt. And that's what it needs to be again. And that's what you've got to reestablish. It's not just a nostalgia thing of pulling out a belt, like pulling out the TNA logo. You've got to like really go for it. And that kind of way of talking has me kind of enthusiastic as well. It's a little thing, but it's attention to detail, and it's the things that we've been lacking. I remember watching just a random Road 2 show back in September, and like things kept changing, like the whole character direction of some people. I remember like Gabe Kidd had like, I watched like 4 shows in a row, and he had a different character in all 4 of them, and I was like losing my shit. It's just like, there's no attention to detail, there's no direction. Like, what the fuck is going on here? And this kind of feels like the opposite. So it's good timing for them to kind of pick up as well. I think people are looking around for something different. Obviously the Cena retirement that ends up feeling much more like a season finale than this one does, in a weird way. Maybe because it's got the same characters underneath, whereas this one has like a new set.
They managed to fill the Barclays Center. Give him credit for that one.
But they filled the Barclays Center potentially partly off Chris Jericho rumor, mate,
who did not show up on Raw last night. which is kind of interesting. I've been really back and forth on this, Trish. I have flip-flopped from he's going 100% to, in the immortal words of Rich Latta, never count out Chris Jericho. What is your gut telling you? You think he's gone or you think he's coming back?
My gut has always been that I don't think him going to WWE is a done deal. And everything I see reinforces that to me.
Yeah.
So this stupid thing, like, why would you do that and not deliver him? What's the benefit?
Well, they did that with Okada.
Later?
I mean, how many times have we seen WWE do that? Like, they've done that before. They've teased people that they don't have under contract.
Yep.
And then, don't provide them.
Yeah, but you're in that era now where the eyes are on you. Like, that Cena thing was a moment where you look at and think, like, even if, like, it's just that crowd, right? It's one crowd. And you say, oh, it's just one crowd. But it puts the eyes on you. People now start to focus on your booking. They start to focus on the things that you're doing. We noticed it, remember that guy with WrestlePalooza where they were promised surprises and there wasn't any?
Yep.
So you're doing that thing now where you're over-promising, under-delivering.
Yep.
And we talked about it, but that's like the most dangerous thing. So you go from the opposite of like delivering things above what people see, and that's what makes them want to come back because you never know what's going to happen, but also like that was so fucking cool. And now you're going, oh, this could happen, and you just get like a straight bland, this is what happens. And like they've seen it before, they've seen these characters in these spots before, they've seen the people in these positions before, they've seen like these matches before, and they're just like, seen it, move on. And oh, you promised us this and you didn't deliver us. That's so dangerous. That's like the most dangerous thing that you can do, full stop. I think that to me, for him as a character, you look at and you think at his age especially, is there more value for him in WWE? He could do less and get more, essentially. But also, I do think there's value in him being in AEW for AEW or being around AEW for AEW.
I agree with that.
He has a huge influence on some of the wrestlers. He he can teach you things in a way that other people can't. But also it's like, because he was around at the start as well, it's that kind of being part of the connection and not having another one of the kind of focal pieces of the history of AEW go to WWE. Like there's value in retaining that, I think.
I think the question becomes, these are questions I can't fully answer these questions because I don't know what Chris Jericho wants. Mm-hmm. Does he want to continue to be a full-time on-screen performer? If he does, I think there's less of a place for him in AEW and more of a place for him in WWE. Is he willing to do a retirement run and then transition to something backstage or, something in terms of like, a Taz role or a Danielson type thing, then maybe there's more of a role for him in AEW and less in WWE. If I was him, seeing how they handled Cena's retirement, I would not be inclined to think that Triple H is going to help me look good in my retirement.
Even worse, look at Goldberg's retirement, which is someone that Triple H had animosity to, and Jericho has had animosity with Triple H in the past.
Correct. Right? Do you trust these guys to treat you the way you want to be treated? Right. Mm-hmm. But that said, we know Tony Khan has a history of freezing people out and not talking to them. Like, is that something like?
No, I don't think he's doing that with Jericho.
I would be surprised if he is.
Yeah.
I think he's likely not, but. I don't know. I think the question's going to be like, what does Jericho want? And is Tony Khan able to provide it to him? And is Triple H able to provide it to him? And we don't know the answers to those things, unfortunately. I think at this point, I'm not surprised to see him either way showing up in one or the other. Yep. I think if he stays in AEW, he has to recognize that something's got to, he's got to put an end point on his run. And he's, got to accept that not everybody's going to be behind him.
Yeah, no, there's a sense of finality, I think, in that regard, in terms of an on-screen performer at the top level. And it's up to him to figure it out. He's obviously had plenty of time to figure out what he's going to do next and how he's going to present it and that sort of thing. But it's one of them where you look at it and you think WWE are looking for things to carry their momentum. They're looking for quick wins. They're not looking for long-term development. No. And I think some of maybe the air about Bron Breakker is probably cooled after whatever that was on Raw. But I wouldn't put it out solely on him.
He's, the funny thing is the age of their scene. Like they brought in Javon Evans and they signed him in a backstage segment that nobody saw. I'm sure they're going to bring up some people, but the question is, what are they going to do with them? And are they going to promote them in a way that they need to? Or are they just going to fade into the background and get fed to their top guys?
Well, they've got to break the ceiling. And we talked about a lot about this with AEW and WWE in the last year. It's like, you still have that ceiling of top guys. So you can get to a certain level. So like someone like, I don't know, like Carl Fletcher, right? You can get to that certain level, but is he going to break into that next one? Because people don't. And it's the same with WWE. So you can bring in like people off NXT, you can put them onto there, but are they going to break through? Are they going to end up like Carmella Hayes? You know, that's the danger. And there's a lot of politics that goes into that, but there's also, you know, who the companies want to kind of just rely on because it's just easier. So it's really, really difficult, and probably more in this age, you know, where it's built around sponsorships and that sort of thing. And like, because you're selling these people as assets, essentially, aren't you? So you're like, oh, you can have Cody Rhodes do this, so you can do this and that. So you have to keep them in a prominent spot. You can't, it's harder to move people down to move other people up. Maybe than it was previously because of the way that the products sell rather than being reliant on kind of ticket sales. As you would have been. So I think it's difficult, but it's also like you have to do it. But if you want a quick win, you bring in a Chris Jericho. And that's a quick win. It's an easy like push button here, isn't it? Like you'll get some cheap pops. You'll get probably some rating. Yeah, he's a draw in terms of TV ratings. He's always been pretty strong in that regard. So you'll get enough out of that. And if you put him in the right program, maybe it's something more. But there, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing to see Punk retain, because you'd think that if he wanted like the actual main event, that he would actually lose. So then you'd have like a challenge for, you know, for Cody or for Roman. But we'll see what happens there. You know, McIntyre probably. That's a crazy one. Like, how do you get out of that one?
McIntyre he's doing essentially, it feels like the exact same feud he did with Punk, except with, instead of a friendship bracelet, it's pictures of Dusty Rhodes. Like, it just, I don't know.
There's only so many times you can do that, though. Like, there's only so many times you can be the heel, and like, you literally, he's got 3 steps. You know, you pick 3 steps yourself. It's like, how the hell do you like? I don't know. It's difficult. Yeah, that's such a difficult position because again, you're not the top guy. You know, you're the guy that people beat. You're the gatekeeper. You know, so I don't understand like how you move him forward. And that's one way. That was probably an easy one, that you can move him up and then wait for the next group of batch of guys, and they've just not done it. They've not done it. And that's one of their mistakes in a couple of years that we'll look back on and go, yeah, like the same way we'll look back on a lot of the New Japan mistakes in like 2020 to now, really, of you've not executed that in time and it's too late. So that's where they are with that now. But you know, they go straight to Europe now. They're out in Europe for most of the spring. They have their Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. And again, does that have a different reception in the US of people watching it, of like how they've taken that product essentially from them? Do they feel like that? Mania ticket sales, you know, and we make huge acknowledgement of the ridiculous pricing. But it's not like it's meant like a really high on sale. They start in the mid 30s, which is very, very good, obviously, but it's not it's not like it increased demand on Las Vegas, being that there's no WrestleMania there, you know, in the US next year, to the level that we maybe thought they could. So they're going to have to work a little bit harder for them ones. But yeah, it's an interesting time for them because they are in a transition time, but they're not allowed transition times.
No, they're not.
So, you know, you were carried a lot, especially in the second half of the year, by John Cena. You know, John Cena carried the ratings. You can see that even like with the weirdness that we get and they're like half completed ratings that we get in terms of viewing hours and things from Netflix. But you can still see the difference that he made. You can absolutely see it in live ticket sales, whether it be the PLEs or whether it be the TV that he did. You know, that's an insane run. But you're taking it out now. And they're, you know, and they're going to try and manipulate the press. You saw did you see the Brandon Thurston thing that went up last night? Yeah, so that was good because we've got to counter this stuff. It's really, really important. So look, if people want to run PR and, you know, and they want to give it to whatever organization who's going to post it like, oh, you know, this one did a great gate or this, you know, they're valid figures, but it has to come with a context of actually this show was down and that show was down. So the actual house show business for the Christmas tour was down, but you know, you can talk about doing the gates, but you've not done a house show since when there. So we need to add that context. We need to be challenging this because I think we're seeing more and more of this. We're seeing more of the kind of claims of fake news and that sort of bollocks as well across different promotions now. So we have to challenge that and say, actually, you know, that's not the numbers, that's not the figures, that's not actually what's happening here. Otherwise, you know, you just read the spin and people like absorb the spin and that becomes the actual narrative and it's considered the truth when it's not. So I was really happy to see that actually, that he just went, yeah, no, actually, let's assess and see how did that tour do. Okay, this is how that tour do. Here's the reality. Here's the counter, the counter narrative of his, that truth. Because otherwise, you have this thing. It's like get here first, isn't it? Like people absorb the first story. They always absorb like, oh, here's the information, and it's really hard then you need more. You actually need probably double the evidence to then counter it.
Yep.
And very clearly explained to get people to change their mind because they've already absorbed something in their brain. So I think we're going to see far more of that this year in terms of WWE putting out their narrative, especially financially, business-wise, and especially with ticket sales, because that's the one thing that people can see the most clearly.
Yes.
So where are we time-wise? Because I've lost my time of day. I don't even know what it is anymore.
We, my friend, have been going for about an hour and a half.
Okay, cool. So a couple more subjects then. So TNA debut upcoming by the time we record again. Have you seen kind of much promotion for this or kind of build for this, as you maybe would expect for a debut on a cable network for first time we've seen since what? 2019, is it for cable?
I'm not watching a lot of cable TV these days, and I was effectively out of it over the holidays, like in a family created bubble. But I do think that I've seen stuff on social media, and that's pretty much about it. I can't say that I feel like there's a lot of buzz around this.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's, but like I said, I've been in a bubble, so maybe there's a lot of promotion and I'm just not seeing it.
See, I'm not seeing too much, and it's weird because it almost feels like they've announced like Joe Hendry for Genesis and stuff. Like they're pushing Genesis more than they're pushing the debut at the moment.
It does. I have seen more of that. Yes, I agree with you on that.
And I think that's a strange position to take because you want your debut is going to be your highest rated show. It's going to be the highest the rated show that they do in this whole entire run. So you'd think that they'd be centering around that and rather than on the kind of the pay-per-view following. But then I also think about, looking at the amounts that are involved for this deal, you're looking at potential growth avenues, right? So are they looking at trying to replicate kind of what AEW do with pay-per-view to try and increase their pay-per-view values? You also have an alternative growth platform, something else that we can sell effectively. But that's a big risk when you just got this TV deal and you're trying to push that. So there's also the thing that comes straight after the holidays. So you're that people change their viewing habits for Christmas and that sort of period. In the UK, it's like you just watch ridiculous amount of films, I think, is what we do, or sport rather than your traditional programming. So are you thinking actually we go really hard straight after that? Because obviously all the attention's been, in wrestling wise especially, it's all been here. It's all been over here for Tanahashi for last week. And then and obviously you had World's End, and then you had the big Raw debut as well. And you can also look at the element of how much is WWE involved, that they wanted the focus to be on the re-debut of Monday Night Raw sort of thing with a Stranger Things tie-in, and not on TNA. And then whether that now revs up as we get into their kind of next week. It's next week.
Yeah.
So it's 8 days. It's not long at all. So. Well, for me, it's 8 days. 9 days for you. Time difference is a funny thing, huh?
I think it's going to be interesting. I'm kind of interested in the fact that a lot of their promotion is revolved around people who you recognize from WWE, right? It's, there was stuff today. It was the Hardys. It was Mustafa Ali. It was Ash by Elegance. It doesn't seem like Mike Santana has been featured in a lot of the promotion. Which I get. They want to push recognizable faces, but we've talked about, you also have to push new faces as part of that. Yes. And, creating that balance is going to be very difficult.
And it's so interesting that they've not got people locked down long term and are talking about 60-day deals. Is that about in terms of when the income comes in from these things? Is it about kind of financial restraints, because when you look at the amount of money involved, and especially how many are running live, and especially when you look at something like Collision costing $650K an episode, it's not going to change fundamentally the system that they're in. It may open opportunities. I think you're hoping for growth, and they open opportunities to earn more money that could change how TNA works, how it operates, the amount of contracts it could offer more full-time rather than dates, or part-time essentially for a lot of deals, or there's lots of people there that are working without a deal. But it's it doesn't change anything fundamental in the meantime. But it's unusual to see people starting off without having so many people signed up long term, and that the network is okay with that. Because we've seen the opposite with AEW. We've seen AEW having to basically, having requests from the network in terms of contracts.
Right.
You know, we've talked to people that have said, like, literally part of negotiations for TV deals was they requested to keep certain individuals, and that was made well aware to, you know, AEW management and Tony Khan. And it's like, so they had a huge influence on, and they have a huge influence on things that happen on the show, the look of the show, the presentation of the show, all those sorts of things. And so that's why it kind of feels weird to me that AMC would be starting with a number of acts that aren't under contract, you know, that until really, really late, there's no guarantee, there's no like, because essentially, it's that asset thing, right? So you've got all these people that are like essentially assets and things that you can market as a network. And if you don't know who you're marketing, like, what are you doing? So it's like, you're not giving them like long-term investment in that regard. So that's a little strange. I know it's TNA and everything's a little strange, but I do find that's like real different. We'll see how they do. Obviously, all the attention will be on that next week to see. Finally, just on the AEW side, a couple of tournaments that we've kind of bypassed with having our Christmas episode, because we'd rather do Mummy's Little Hammer Award than talk about American wrestling sometimes in December. Yeah, so we had the end of the women's tag tournament and the C2. Do you have any final thoughts of them now we've kind of seen them in their completion?
The women's tag tournament was a bit of a shock surprise win for me, because I sort of expected Tony and Mina to win. I was happy to see Harley and Willow win. I think that's good, although I sort of questioned, like, you know, I questioned whether that was going to put Willow in a box, and then she beat Mercedes for the TBS title, so it didn't. But I always get nervous when people are holding multiple belts at once, because I feel like the secondary belts tend to get ignored. But we'll see. The C2, shocking finish on that one. Shocking finish on that one. Did not see that coming. Did not feel like that was the story I was being told. Did not feel like that was the end of multiple stories that I was being told. But you know what? Let's see it play out. You know, everybody's got to have a belt so they can live in their own little belt universe, and they don't have to interact with people they don't want to talk to or wrestle. But yeah, I'm just, you know, it's not the story I thought I was being told with regard to the Death Riders. It's not the story I thought I was being told with regard to Okada and Takeshita and Fletcher. But okay, yeah, all right, let's see what happens, I guess. I'm so glad we have more belts now. It always leads to better storytelling when you just have a bunch of belts that sort of all fade together into the distance.
They're just cheap story creators, aren't they? Right, so rather than having to, you think when they had like a lot less belts, and they made a point of that, like, but you have to work much harder to make stories work, to keep people occupied when they're not, you know, chasing gold or have gold, and we haven't had that. So now it's like, oh, it's an easy construct. Okay, here's an eliminator match we'll throw down for TV, especially now you've got like 4 hours of TV, like we'll throw down 10 minutes before or whatever. So it's like, it's a booker's like kind of
it's just
like
fucking
crutch.
insane.
Yeah, but it's to a point where, like, so you split off the Continental, which really shouldn't even be the championship to start with.
We've got the international title, which was combined with the Continental into the unified title. Those are now separate now. So we have the international title, we have the Continental title, we have the national title, we have the TBS title. We have, what else am I forgetting? We have the tag belts. We have the trios belts. We have the women's tag belts and trios belts.
The trios belts don't exist. They don't exist. We don't do that.
Nobody fucking does anything with them. It's just, I don't know. It's just kind of deranged. It's too much. It's I don't know. They could get rid of 2 of those and they'd be a lot better off, quite frankly.
Yeah, but it's also like that interpersonal management thing, isn't it? So I think so. I think there's twofold things for me here. So I thought some of the storytelling in the C2 was very good. If you want to take Moxley C2 as like in a vacuum, right? The way that beginning the tournament and the end is a clever told story.
Yes.
I thought the match with Carl Fletcher was fantastic. I think Carl Fletcher has shown that he can absolutely carry himself at that top level into ring and play the heel, which is nice. And on a regular basis, and he's ready to do something more. we'll see if he gets the opportunity to in the next year. But he's ready to do that, and he showed that there. And it was such a stronger match than the final, which never got going, and felt like they just didn't gel. I think sometimes you get that with Moxley, and especially with Okada as well. They just didn't gel, and then you do that sort of thing, and maybe it feels a bit weird, but in terms of like the storytelling they told in that tournament, if you want to take it like in a vacuum, you can see how that would work. Does it work with everything in the Death Riders in the year, and like how like they were supposed to be like this evil force, and then you turn it around in like 6 hours? I don't know, but from that small bit, I thought they did really well to elevate Kevin Knight in this tournament.
Yes,
yeah, and you need to carry that on. He's such a clever guy. He's not somebody that was like a huge fan of wrestling coming in, so he has no of his own kind of pre-connotations or like expectations maybe that other people have. So that's kind of important. I think you can see that in the way that he works. He has like a less of a fearlessness, and that's not like in terms of I'm going to do stupid shit, but like fearlessness in terms of like not being afraid to try things or do things. But yeah, he's really raised his stock. I thought Jack Perry coming in did very, very well.
Yes,
which was nice to see. Him working as a babyface again is just miles better than whatever the fuck that heel stuff was, in ring wise at the end of 2024. And I thought there was plenty of good stuff, plenty of good action. What you come to expect, and it does. It makes them shows feel more valuable.
Yeah,
because you go from these kind of predictable 10 minutes, 15-minute matches that no one really cares about, but hey, it's a good match, and if you're invested in that, then great, and if you're not, then you're looking for something more, and it makes it have stakes. Every match has stakes. Every match is kind of star versus star, or things that you can, or even like, there's a story behind it without having to have too much of a story. And I think that if you can find a way to replicate that in the rest of the television throughout the year, rather than having this really important like feeling month for TV and everything else just feeling like wishy-washy waiting for the pay-per-view, they would have a much stronger TV product. How you do that is up to them, but you can see the difference. There's like a difference between that product and what we had like the 3-4 months before.
Yeah.
The women's tag tournament, I think it would have benefited massively from finishing earlier and not being like drowned out by the C2.
Agreed.
So the timing of that didn't work. The Willow kind of getting to TBS makes it interesting because you now got the double champion thing, which we've got a bit of, the Samoa Joe situation we've seen that with as well. That's where you see it's too many belts when everyone's got 2 belts or 3 belts. They're all doing their best Ultimo Dragon impression unintentionally, and not even like Mercedes, who's like building the story. What do you think of Mercedes kind of dropping them so quickly now?
I think it's time. Yeah. I feel like, given the amount of time that the women are given in general, I don't think they were ever going to build it up in a way that I probably would have found satisfying. Excuse me. I think it's time. I think it's good that she's sort of losing them as fast. I don't know. It's fine. I can't say it's driving me into like, wow, this is amazing. I can't miss this. But that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of AEW at this point right now. It's fine.
Yeah, they need some things to kind of hook into. And that's the difficult part. Is you have this big tournament that kind of carries the TV, and you can overlook a load of other things. And there's been a bit of a kind of malaise with their TV for a few months now, probably since kind of September-ish, really. But we'll see where we go. Elephant in the room time. So obviously the world title change, we knew that was coming before Full Get, which everyone going to give me shit, and I was like, yeah, enjoy your 4-way because that's what you get. But the big question was, when they booked that 4-way, was when we found out about it. I was talking to people the weekend of Full Gear about it, and the big question I had and others had is like, who does this benefit, right? Because you have Paige, who's just been geeked twice on pay-per-view, right? He got turned on at Wrestle Dream, and then you have whatever the fuck that was at Full Gear with the finish and the mess of that. But he's not going to get revenge. And you've told the audience essentially that his word as a babyface doesn't mean anything, so you lose something. And you could hear it. I mean, you could hear it at World's End, and he knows it. Like, you can see it on his face without even talking to anybody. You can see it. Like, he knows that you've lost something as a babyface, to the point where you almost wonder, what do you have left as a babyface? So you can't just keep going down the same road. You can't keep having to proclaim the same revenge or the same term for the belt. Like, he's stuck in like this cycle at the moment where he needs to come out of it. He needs to do something else, because otherwise, like, there's no development. And he's trying little things, and you can see like the darker clothing, all the other little detail stuff that he does, and like the Team of Swerve it's cool, like whether you feel that it's unearned or not. But it's like he has to go and do something else now, because you've kind of destroyed that babyface momentum. Yeah, that smart babyface from the summer is gone, which is difficult. But that was always going to happen. So the idea with the 4-way, like the finish is like, oh, you're supposed to feel like MJF stole it, like he's the weasel, like a thing. But that didn't happen because of the way everything built up to it, going through from Full Gear. Then you have like Swerve who comes back, who basically saves that moment. So he saves like the crowd and everything like that. But in the end, essentially what you've done is also sacrifice his immediate momentum from his return as well. And that's what it felt like when we got to World's End. Like, he was probably the most over guy in the match, but it didn't feel like, coming out of it, it just felt like you could have done way more with that return than what you did, rather than being like a supplementary guide to the Max title win. This is how it feels right now. Joe's Joe. Doesn't really matter, does it? He's fine. We'll just do what he does. And then for MJF, so, when it was suggested, we were told by multiple people that MJF wasn't happy about the 4-way idea. And I agree with him. And I've been kind of bullish around MJF this year. I was the one, when we had our discussion around him and Paige working together, it was like, yeah, he needs to do it. He needs to prove it. And I can understand, like, you'd rather do the kind of the big win over Paige because you've done the two, like, losses, but also it's a much cleaner story. Like, you were the one that ended this, like, reign that everyone thought would go long sort of thing. And instead you do what you did. And, Max got his own stuff out of it by doing his, like, Manchester promo. And, that's out there. The Observer put it out there. We put it out there in terms of it was uncleared. He did what he did. Again, it's what we spoke about at the start of the thing, right? He focused more about getting himself over than the babyfaces, at the cost of babyfaces. So now you have this world champion and he's doing that sort of thing. And, in a way that this whole scenario has given him an opportunity, right? Because you can change your character now. And you said back in September, I'm going to come back, I'm going to be this nastier, this MJF, and you've come back as the weasel, and you've come back as the same, like, edgelord bullshit that a lot of people are just tired of, quite frankly. Or just sick of, they're not feeling offended enough to be like, I hate you, I'm going to buy a ticket to see the person beat you. They're just like, I'm just tired of it. I don't want to see it. I'm bored of it. Like, look at the world we live in. Be cleverer, be a better heel, like, work to actually be a heel rather than something else. And you've got the opportunity to do that now. Like, you've got, even using like the meta stuff and whatever, like, you can prove you are that. And you've inherited a great landscape in terms of ticket sales. Like, on sales have been stronger that he inherited. Not always playing out, but they have been. Pay-per-view wise, you're in LA for your next one. That's going to sell really well, just based off Revolution last year, quite frankly. Dynasty being in Vancouver should be the biggest one because they did like 6,500 for a no-name real collision there. Sorry, Kyle O'Reilly. But that should be an easy over 10K house. And then after that, then okay, you're gonna have some challenges with TV ratings in the summer because you have the NBA kicking in, that sort of thing. We've got Winter Olympics coming up in a couple of weeks. But in terms of, you have that time of year where traditionally they do better. So think of it, it's the old Hulk Hogan thing, right? He used to take a football season, like Monday nights, and it's like, but it's the same thing. So that like the Q4 is really damaging, and obviously you've had the impact of the Big Data Plus panel. The pay-per-view buys have been built back up over the last year. They've been really strong. I know Dave was told, like, this one did as well, was all better than Full Gear. I don't think his TV numbers quite showed that yet, so we'll see how that works out this week. But yeah, you've been given this like huge platform. It's like the best thing that you can inherit. It's much better inheritance than like what Paige had or what Moxley had or whatever in the last, your last two kind of bigger runs. So you can do something with it. You can change your kind of character tones. You can change it to the people that are chasing you and the people that have been taken out of other creative to do so. Can, get over as well with you. And you can kind of prove some of that thing that we're talking about it meta because it's been used in promos now, but it is a feeling that people feel. But also, like, you can prove yourself more as a character. You can be more of a draw. You can be more of a barrier. And if they're going to do, as they've talked about, and as Max tells everybody, Ospreay and MJF at Wembley, then you need to be the biggest heel.
What an awful match. What a fucking awful match that's going to be. Like, I appreciate all of this, and like, you're being all nice and shit, but I'm not
being nice and shit. I think there's an opportunity. Like,
he's not going to do any of this.
No, he probably isn't.
He's not going to do any
of this. There's an opportunity to do it.
if there is an opportunity, he's not going to do fucking any of this. We're going to have a feud with Bandito where he does, racist edgelord ice references and other bullshit. He's going to have a half-hearted feud with Kenny where Kenny sort of dials it in and MJF makes some shooty bullshit comment or talks about being the best in the world or beating him twice or having a long reign or whatever. And then we're going to go into a succession of mid-card feuds where he takes full advantage of the quarter hours that he's given and does everything he can.
No one sees the quarter hours now. No one sees the quarter hours now. But
he's going to do everything he can to bury his opponents and anybody else who's getting popular while he's not involved in their program. It's the same shit we're going to see that we did last time. I'm just not particularly optimistic about it. So the same
plenty of reasons not to be. There's plenty, but to be fair, like the rep that he got as soon as he came back with some of the little maneuverings. Of course, there's no reason not to be. But
this is what he does. He's not confident enough in his own abilities. He knows he cannot do what a Swerve or a Hangman or a Bandito or a Takeshita or an Okada. He knows he can't compete with those guys. So he's going to bully them and bury them a little bit and then go off and get around with what he can do. He wants to be the cool heel that everybody cheers for. He doesn't actually want to fucking be a heel. He wants to be somebody that everybody loves and cheers.
Well, he wants to be the figurehead babyface, but he's scared because he failed so much last time.
Because he sucked at it. Because his instincts, he had no clue what the fuck he was doing, and he was absolute bullshit. I mean, it's going to be more of that same shit he had where he took pictures with people backstage, and I'm going to do a feud with this one. Oh, who does your, why are we getting a Bandito feud? Because everybody loves Bandito, and MJF can have a great match with him. Right. He's got momentum.
And he can have a great match, and then he's absorbing that momentum, though. There's Bandito, yeah. So you need Bandito to get something out of that and not just
I am being a fucking asshole bitch, and I apologize. I am just over it. I am fucking over it. Another 9 months of heat. I mean, you talk about Okada and Moxley not having chemistry. Who had less fucking chemistry than MJF and Ospreay? They just didn't. I can think of a dozen better opponents for Ospreay. Even Kyle Fletcher, who he doesn't want to discuss their deep emotional feud or whatever. There's so many better ways to get a belt on Ospreay, and we're going back to fucking MJF and 8 months of heat during an absolute shitty period where people could have maybe some optimism or hope or some interesting character stuff. And instead we're going to have shoot bullshit references and people in the audience going, ooh, yawn. Wake me up in the fucking summer. I'm over it, right? I'm over it.
As I said, if he can look at, he takes the opportunities he's got, and that's not just in front of the cameras either. Take the opportunities to work with people, take the opportunities to make yourself better. It could be different. There's a lot of pressure on this one. If you're the big numbers guy, then you need to deliver that and not just the ones that have been pre-handed to you. We'll see. That is something like with the old Dave thing, we'll see in 6 months, we'll learn a lot by the summer, just like we did in 2024 after his run in 2023, right? It wasn't the first quarter that went down because the first quarter was, and there was lots of help the first quarter, the Sting retirement, the hot kind of Page Swerve story, that Joe allowed to kind of just run really. But then when you took those things away, once we got into spring, all the kind of damage from the previous year showed up, and that's where they had the huge drops, right? So we'll see how that goes. But I think he's got the opportunity. It's so funny because I wrote that thing, and it's real resentment. I'm sick of fucking hearing about it, to be honest with you. And it's a warning. It's a warning that you can burn capital here, or you can do well, and you can take the opportunity. Pick your road, pick your lane. Pick what you want to do. That's it. They're the only two choices. And and it might be hard to watch if you're not invested in Max and you saw the way the Page reign was treated, and everyone else saw the way the Page reign was treated. They saw how people were pitched and suddenly moved into other things, and the way that people were being dragged out for this one now. So it has to work. And do I think it works in terms of being a repeat opponent for Wembley? No, I don't. I think that's the worst thing you can do, especially someone that he's already beaten. There's the obstacle isn't there as much.
What's the point? We already did this. He beat MJF at Wembley for a belt. We're going to do this fucking again? Why? They had shitty chemistry. MJF was the fucking American guy who had to go into it so that Ospreay had to stand in the fucking ring in how many states and go, no, I love this country. What the fuck? Talk about setting the guy up for fucking failure. It just doesn't make any sense. All this shit's built around the least intelligent, the least interesting common denominator. And it's just heat.
Yeah, we've had two.
Okay.
But that's probably the bigger.
Heat.
But that's probably the bigger thing is year, right? And we're into another period of heat, long heat, right? So what's the point of wanting the baby faces to win when you don't get nothing afterwards, right? That's where you get into that WWE 2010 cycle. It's all about the moment. You can have Danielson win, but it doesn't really matter because they're going to kill him by Brock Lesnar straight afterwards. That's the danger of where we're getting into with them, is that they're chasing these all-in moments, like the WrestleMania moments, but not actually looking at building the person afterwards. And you'd hope with Ospreay, that's your best chance because Tony's really invested in him, as a long-term champion or as a long-term kind of top guy in a way that maybe he isn't in others, and we're told he isn't in others. So it's like, you'd hope that would be that, but you have to have that because otherwise you're just building for moments, and that there's no thing that differentiates you then from WWE, and you're losing that fact. I think it's a lost art. I know Connor, a friend of ours that wrote for Newsletter, wrote a fantastic piece months and months ago about the lost art of the babyface on the top, and like it's not always about the chase and the heat. And I think that's the danger that people are slipping into, and it's just I don't get it. Like, they do well business-wise when they have a babyface on top. It's like, yes, it's harder to book. Yes, it's harder to maintain. Yes, you have to make a fucking effort, quite frankly. But you should do it. Listen, I don't see no benefit for that.
We could do that, or we could do sexism. Hey, maybe we can find another tag team for MJF to beat single-handedly. Like, this is.
Oh, we tried that.
This is where we're at right now. Like, So I don't know. Whatever. I don't want to be too negative. We are over 2 hours, so
right. Yeah, we're done. But yeah, they might kill us.
Like I said, I've reserved the right to be told I'm wrong, and I will never be happier in the world. Listen, was I fucking thrilled when Edge didn't show up at fucking? I was convinced he was showing up at World's End, and he didn't. Total wrongness on my part. I've been wrong before. I will be wrong again. Confidently. It will not prevent me from speaking aggressively.
I'm dying today.
I'm dying today. I'm so sorry. I apologize to everyone for the coughing. I should have muted myself. Could I figure out how to do that? No.
To be fair, I'm half dying today because I knew that we were doing this, and I still went to do karaoke last night because I'm a bad human.
How many times are you going to get to do karaoke in Japan with the best wrestling fans in the world? Yeah, with Emmy and Tim, who write for our newsletter, and with Josh and Jeremy from Keeping It Strong Style, Social Suplex Crossover. So, yeah, we had a good time, and it's been great. This is the thing about these trips, and I'm going to do something with some of the people here just to kind of talk a lot more about the experience of coming out for these weeks, not just Wrestle Kingdom, but also like all the other shows and all the things that you can do, and how accessible it is really now. Once you get past the flight price, to be out here and to kind of live out here day to day. But it's such a cool community to come out of. Like, if you come out here by yourself, you're going to meet people, you're going to speak to people, you're going to hang out with people, you just and the amount of people that you meet and the kind of the enthusiasm and the energy, and we saw a bit of that with All In. That was something that we really fed off, for sure. Absolutely.
But it's like a cumulative thing, and it's like different shows and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's just great. It's an incredible feeling, and because it's such a vastly different kind of culture and country, there's so much to explore at the same time. So you just end up with this just incredible trip. It's so much worth doing. And maybe it's hard because maybe it never tops this year. You can't top that Wrestle Kingdom. The Stardom pay-per-view, we keep hearing all about that. You had Night to kind of know it. There's so many big things about the wrestling side. But yeah, this is such a phenomenal place to come. It's such a great place to watch wrestling. The live experience in terms of, as a fan, being able to watch is so much more comfortable than it is in the US or in the UK or in, I'm not going to speak for Mexico. I've not been in Mexico personally, so I'm not going to speak for Mexico. But yeah, there's so much more way. It's such an easier way to enjoy wrestling. And like, you get caught up with it. One of my favorite things is like, I can't switch my brain off, don't you? I'm terrible for it. So for example, like Aaron Wolf and Evil, like I'm sat there in my head, like, and others will others will attest to it. It's like, I can't switch it off. I'm just going, this structure is fucking amazing. Like, look at that. And I can't switch it off. And then we get to like Tsuji and Takeshita, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I watch it back afterwards, and I'm like, okay, I can see what they did there, and I can see what they did there, and that's cool. And I talk about it afterwards. But I'm watching it, I was like, I just want him to fucking win. I just want him to fucking win, and I'm living and I'm dying by it. And the same with Tanahashi and Okada, you're just like living and dying by it. And we get so lost in saying sometimes that it's so nice to just be like, they've got me. They've hooked me. Whether it's the structure, whether it's the presentation, whether it's what they've done before, and whatever it is. I'm so invested in this that all I care about is a result. I couldn't give a fuck about if it's a 5-star match or anything else. It's like, I want this. And you're caught up in that emotion. And I think that's easier here as well. Just because that's generally how, the kayfabe still
much more real in so many aspects. Look at how Tokyo sports work, how the papers work here and stuff, than it is in the US. But it's like there's nothing better than being lost in that and being like, I just want this guy or this woman to fucking win. Quite frankly. And I've really enjoyed that. And did I jump out my seat for Tsuji? Asking Emmy.
You did.
I did, yeah. I full on jumped out my seat for Tsuji. I don't give a fuck. Yeah, it was awesome. And I love that sort of emotion. And it's very few times that you get that. It's probably in the past year the only other moment was really All In, where we had that. So, and you've got to deliver more than the moments for sure. And I keep going on about that. But being able to deliver them in itself is also something to attest to too. So, yeah, it was cool. If you get the opportunity to do it, just something to always put on the list, because I think it's my favorite place to watch wrestling. I really do. And there's so much variation, and you can do so many different things. You can go see comedy wrestling. You can go see like really serious wrestling, like MMA style. You can do whatever you want, but it's just a fantastic place to watch wrestling. And it's been a fantastic week. And I think everybody that's out here at the moment is buzzing. And if you have somebody coming back from here, you're probably going to hear about it for the next month continuously.
Well, I'm glad you're having a good time. I'm really glad you're enjoying it, and I'm glad the show was worth it.
Oh, yeah. Like, you can't ask for more, honestly.
No.
So, I think it's enough, because I think Leah is going to murder me.
It's bedtime.
She gave me a thumbs up. She is actually going to murder me. Excellent. At least it's not just threatening to murder me like last year or the year before last. All right. Am I taking the clothes back now, considering like you stole it for the
I didn't steal shit.
You did steal shit. You were better at it. You were better than I am. So
listen, I'm a lying motherfucker. That's why
yeah, right.
Do it.
Okay, cool. So this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, live from Boston, Massachusetts and Tokyo, Japan. I quite like that. It was shit, but I liked it. Anyway.
It's good.
Thank you for listening to our thoughts, especially around New Japan and Wrestle Kingdom coming out of this week. If you have any questions, any considerations, anything you want to know, or any feedback, you can contact us at trishandsarahpod@gmail.com, trishandsarahpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter, not X, at Trish and Sarah. You can find us on Blue Sky under our own names. You get stick for that every time now. It's just a running joke, so we'll just carry on.
It's unfair.
You can find us on Discord with Social Suplex Network. Discord, come in, talk to us, talk to all the other hosts, talk to some great wrestling fans. I think they had a great time watching Wrestle Kingdom, especially this week, and watching Raw, I think, in a weird way. But yeah, you can come in and do that. You can also listen to all our other great podcasts on our network on your favorite podcasting providers, including Tunnel Talk. Yay! Literally, if I've forgotten. Which comes out every Sunday. Give that a listen, change your perspective on wrestling. Give it. That's what I keep hearing from people that have done so, and I think that's so valuable in this thing. A part of Tunnel Talk is Leah, who is our fantastic producer. Does a great job of us, especially doing this now, considering like the time difference and everything that's going on. This is not easy, so I very much appreciate you. That's pretty much it. We'll see you back in 2 weeks. I think the TNA debut is probably going to be a big topic of conversation.
Yep.
That's going to be very interesting, I think. Harrison's punching our friend Harrison's punching the air because he's going to be TNA focused, like, oh my god, like, this is for me. Even if it's just for him, we'll definitely cover it. So until then, I've been Trish.
I've been Sarah.
This has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, and we thank you for listening.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.